Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for October 18, 2023. We're doing our Week 7 NFL picks against the spread show. Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News is joining me once again. He's back from his 1 week hiatus. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm glad to be back on the show. It was a lot more pleasant than having a minor planned medical procedure last week. So I am very glad to be here. You wouldn't have wanted me in here at post anesthesia. I probably would have fallen asleep on you. And let's be honest, my picks weren't very good last week. So it's probably a good thing that I wasn't on. I think I went like a very generous 5-10-1 against the spread. I had a lot of bad calls last week. I had the Eagles in Survivor, so I'm out of Survivor. We had some really bad beats. I mean, the Patriots Raiders one. Like, I know the Patriots aren't a good team this year, but they 100% should have covered that spread against the Raiders. That safety was absolutely terrible. And I just could not believe when it was happening. I can't believe Devontae Parker dropped that pass. I watched that whole sequence and I was like, he can't take a safety here. He can't take a safety. And he took the safety. And it was, that moment I was like, that was the cherry on top of like, I knew the rest of the week wasn't going to go well. Closed it with a win, got the Cowboys right. I got the London game right. So those two I felt pretty good about in the end. But the rest of the week was just a lot of pretty down. Overall, but you have weeks like that. You just got to try to bounce back. I don't think we were like overly far off on a lot of stuff. We just had some really bad swings in terms of luck in some games, and some games we had bad calls. I'll admit the Lions Buccaneers game, I got scared off that one by the number, and I should not have been scared off the Lions. I should have stuck with them because we like them. And Baker Mayfield, when he's under pressure, or faces a team with a good pass rush, that's when you want to fade him. So that 3 looked scarier than it actually was. We knew the Lions were, way better than the overrated Buccaneers. So all that's to say, I'll learn from it, move forward from here, but I've rambled enough. How are you doing? How was your last week there?
Well, Andrew said it best. Walt, were you getting your toaster ready after that Raiders safety? I think that's the worst beat I've ever had. I said before that, well, I'll say this. I can remember like 2 of the worst beats I've ever had beforehand. One was a Redskins Chiefs game on Monday night where I had like the Redskins at like +6 or something like that. And they had the ball and they were like down 3 or 4. And it was one of those things where someone fumbles, they return for a touchdown, and the Chiefs cover. That happened like right at the end. So it's kind of like similar to this. But that wasn't my pick of the month. I think I had that for like 4 or 5 units. Like it was still like a brutal beat. My other bad beat I talked about last week with Tom, who's here, who says, "Hey guys, welcome back, Jacob. Better than the guy who thinks he's a duck." Yeah. So like that, it was Dolphins Saints. It was 2008, I think, or no, maybe 2010. It was 2010. And the Dolphins were +6 at home. And my dad asked me, he's like, "Who do you like this week?" I'm like, "I love the Dolphins." And he's like, "Really? The Dolphins? Like the Saints are so good." I'm like, "Yeah, I think it's a great spot for them, yada, yada." And he's like, okay, put in a bet for me. And it was 17-0. Dolphins are +6. They got us a 17-0 lead. And my dad calls me. He's like, "Great pick." I'm like, "Oh no, this is cursed now." And it ended up like the Saints ended up winning 46-32. But as bad as that was, like the game was decided by the end. Like the Saints just came roaring back in the third quarter, and they took the lead in the fourth quarter, and they just like kept their foot on the gas. Like this one came down at the end. It was my pick of the month, and like it was like in slow motion. Like I could see it coming. Like like when Devontae Parker dropped the pass, I'm like, like what's gonna happen here? And then they had the delay game, and then it's like, oh no, I thought actually that they're gonna have a holding call in the end zone. Like I was ready for like the yellow flag to come out, and then of course Mac Jones takes the safety. It's just ridiculous. Like the stupid Raider team's 3-3. Like I say every week, I listen to football podcasts and stuff like that. I heard so many people this week go, "Oh, the Raiders are pretty good now. They're 3-3." It's like, oh my god, like come on. they beat the Patriots by really 2 and only 4, and like and so it's just I don't know. It's ridiculous. It just says Eagles Cowboys last year. That was real B too. That cost me so much money in the super contest because I would have gotten like second place in the mini contest in that game. That was Miles Sanders fumbling. But like the thing is, like that wasn't as bad as this because the Eagles still had a chance at the end. Like they still had a drive to go, and like Jalen Hurts stalled inside the red zone. So like the Eagles still could have covered the spread. But this one, it was just over. Like the Patriots, like the next thing I saw on the Gamecast on CBS was like, it's like a fair catch by the Raiders, game over. It's like, okay, like so much for that onside kick, but then it's a free kick, so they couldn't really do that. So that was it. Like it's just so bad. I don't know. I imagine it's one of the worst beats you've ever had too, right?
Yeah, I was actually with you on that Redskins Chiefs game. I remember texting you after it. I did not bet that. I knew you had bet it, and I was like very much like, yeah, if I was going to bet tonight, I would go with this game and I would be on your side. I remember watching it happen. I was like, oh my God, no. So I remember that one. But easily my worst beat was that Patriots game. And the worst part of it is all we needed was one thing to happen for that spread to hit. It could have been any number of things. If the Raiders had gotten one last first down, they would have run out the clock to win by 2. If Devontae Parker catches that pass, the Patriots, maybe they win the game. Bare minimum, there's going to be a cover because if the Raiders get a turnover, they're just going to take a knee and run out the clock. And same thing in the red zone when the Patriots were backed up. I'm like, man, they just like I know they're going to try to get the ball down the field, but the one thing they can't do is take a safety or throw. Back in my mind, I'm like, oh, they could throw a pick six, but I was like, nah, the Raiders would take a knee because the Patriots are effectively out of timeout. So unless it was really just a guy not paying attention, which is always possible, the safety was the only thing that could have sunk us. And it happened. So,
Yep.
Horrible, horrible beat. And just like we had other moments in that game where the Patriots probably should have set themselves up to cover. I mean, the one that stands out is Mac Jones' terrible interception in the red zone where he tried to throw on the run. He threw it like 8 yards over Hunter Henry's head. And it's like, man, there's just so much wrong with that Patriots team. It is, I've never seen anything like it as someone who's watched the Patriots since my childhood and has never really seen them perform poorly.
Yeah, Tom saying after this, I don't see me backing the Patriots again this year. Now watch them cover the next game. Yeah, you know what's going to happen. They're going to cover their next four games, and then we're going to be suckered in on them again, and then they're going to let us down. This is what's going to happen. I guarantee it. Like November 17, whatever day that is. Let's just say 5 weeks from now, November 14, we're going to be talking, and we're going to be on the Patriots, and like we're like, oh, the Patriots have been covering the spread a lot lately. Like I guarantee it's going to happen. Anyway, we had some like really weird results last week. I felt like a lot of the teams that covered should not have covered. And like this is not me being salty or making excuses. Like I had no picks. I had no bets on these games. I found this interesting. Real quick, like Redskins Falcons. Redskins covered as underdogs, but the Falcons outgained the Redskins 402 to 193, and the Falcons averaged 1.2 more yards per play. Vikings Bears. The Vikings won and covered as 2.5 point favorites. But the Bears outgained the Vikings 275 to 220, and they averaged more yards per play. Bengals Seahawks. The Bengals covered the -2.5 or -3, whatever you had. Seahawks outgained the Bengals 381 to 214, and they averaged 1.4 more yards per play. There was another one. Texans Saints. The Texans won, and they covered as 1 point dogs. The Saints outgained them 430 to 297, and they averaged 0.5 more yards per play. Jaguars Colts. We saw what happened. Gardner Minshew threw 1 billion interceptions. The Colts outgained the Jaguars 354 to 233, and they averaged one yard more per play. And then, of course, Raiders Patriots. Like there are 6 games that could have went the other way, probably should have went the other way. It was one of the weirdest weeks I've ever seen in my life. Like usually you have like 2 of these games, like 2 false covers, maybe 3, like 6 in a slate with 15 games. Like I've never seen anything like that too. It's just so bizarre. And I think that it's very crucial to know which teams are good after a week like that. And, hopefully that's the way we can rebound. I personally went 6, I think I was 6-8-1 against the spread, but it was money wise is the worst week of the year for me. So you can only go up, right?
Yeah, no, we can only go up after that type of week. So I'm glad I had more time to do research this week too. So I felt like I put in a little more and like just a little more thought into each scenario. So I think we're going to be in good shape. And I think to your point about like the yardage and the gaining and all that stuff, I think with the way the NFL's worked this year with teams taking more chances in the red zone and 4th down scenarios, I think we'll probably see those type of results a little bit more going forward. So I think the coaches that know when it's actually the right time to go for it are going to have an advantage in covering the spread going forward for that. So I don't know how you predict that without just gathering data, but I don't think we're going to see like 6 games in 1 week do that again because that's just an insane number.
Yeah, it was like teams like the Falcons and the Saints and the Colts, like they were moving the ball well, and they either had turnovers on downs or they turned the ball over. Like with Gardner Minshew, he couldn't stop throwing to his former team. So I felt like he almost had a concussion. They thought he was still in the Jaguars. Like that's what it felt like to me. Anyway, we had a question here from Andrew. I had a huge bet. Oh wait, it was hold on. This is the question here. Jacob, as a Patriots fan, do you think Bill Belichick should retire at the end of the year? I've seen it in a lot of anti-Belichick takes. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think based off what we're seeing from the Patriots this year, I think if you're the Patriots, if you're Robert Kraft, you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, I got to make a change here. So you got to figure out what the exit strategy is for Bill Belichick. Now, maybe he turns things around and maybe they start playing better as the year closes out. And then you say, all right, we'll give Belichick one more chance. But the issue is Belichick isn't just the coach, he's also the GM. And he's kind of built this very flawed team that has holes in its coaching staff. It has holes on the offensive line, has terrible receiving weapons. Like, even if you're not a big Mac Jones guy, and like I like Mac Jones more than most people, I'm acknowledging that he has not played well at all the last 3 games. But you can't even tell if he's the like root cause of these problems because he's surrounded by so much chaos on that unit. So it's been an organizational failure as much as it's been Mac Jones's failure. So I think what you're going to see is kind of maybe a cleaning house. I think they're going to have to bring in a new quarterback. They're going to probably bring in a new head coach. And I think Belichick might say, yeah, I want to step down from my post. The Patriots will let him do that and let him coach somewhere else. Somewhere would probably hire him. But, I mean, he's going to have his hand forced if he doesn't want to retire, though. So Robert Kraft doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to say, all right, Bill, you're going to get another year to prove yourself. Because he's had the time post-Brady to prove himself, find a new quarterback, and fix things. And it just hasn't worked. So I think he's been given enough leeway at this point, and it's time to put up or shut up. If they don't look better the rest of the way, it's going to be time for a change.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like the only thing I'd say to that is that Robert Kraft is going to be 83 by the time next season rolls around, and I feel like it's a little too old for him to like a complete rebuild, which is what the Patriots should do. So maybe maybe cooler heads prevail, and he obviously talks to him and says like, hey, can you turn this thing around within 2 years? Maybe Belichick says that, and then maybe Belichick points to all the injuries they had. So I think that like it's not guaranteed. I feel like the Patriots should blow everything up, but I don't know if that'll happen just because of Kraft's age. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I hadn't considered it from that angle. To me, like he's like age. They're both ageless to me. Like I always just think that they're the same age they were when I was a kid. Really.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy to think about how long they've been there together, but they should rebuild, like I said, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they will. Anyway, let's get to these games. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would mean a lot to us. If you want to help support the show, word of mouth is the best way. So if you know someone who might like this, just send them the link. That would greatly be appreciated. All right, we have a game on Thursday night that could be competitive, but we don't know the quarterback situation for the Jaguars. This line is the game is Jaguars at Saints. This line opened up Jaguars minus, if I can find it. It opened up pick'em, actually. It went up to Saints -3 on, I guess, like early Tuesday. And I kind of pointed it out on Twitter. I'm like, hey, does someone know something here? Because I didn't see anything in the news. And then this line dropped to 1. So either someone knew something and then someone else knew something else, or people are just speculating here on the line moves. Trevor Lawrence was in practice on Tuesday with a knee brace, so maybe he plays. I don't think we know yet. So what do you think about this game at Saints -1?
Yeah, so my guess is the bets that brought it to Saints -3 were speculative. People were speculating that CJ Beathard would be starting instead of Lawrence, and they might just be taking a shot and saying like, hey, if CJ Beathard starts, I like the Saints to win, so why wouldn't I bet that at this point? And that would move the line enough. I'm torn on this game. If Trevor Lawrence plays and this line stays at Saints -1, I do think I like the Saints here. I don't know if I bet this game, which, as we know, if it's a Thursday night game and I say I'm not going to bet it, it's a 1-unit bet. because I can't help myself. I'm still haven't lost on Thursday night. I pushed on the Chiefs game, first non-victory for me this year. But that was the one saving grace of last week, because I did not lose on Thursday. So my logic on why I like the Saints at -1 here is twofold. One, I don't like backing injured quarterbacks. So Trevor Lawrence playing with a knee injury where he's wearing a knee brace in practice and maybe not 100% on a short week, that scares me off of the Jaguars, who already haven't been great on offense this year. I just think this might end up being a low-scoring game, and I think the Saints, as the home team, could potentially pull out a victory here. So we're not getting 3 with the Jaguars in that case. I don't like their side as much. I do think that they're the better team, but I think the Saints defense against an injured Trevor Lawrence would perhaps level the playing field a little bit more. And the other issue I have is, we talked about the Jaguars' schedule before their game against the Colts last week. Well, you and I talked about it personally. I wasn't on here. My worry was that they were going to potentially be tired after 2 weeks in London, maybe not take the Colts seriously enough, and not be able to cover that 4-point spread as a result. They were able to do that, and I think it was because the one thing that had given me pause in that was the Colts are a divisional rival. So I think that they took that game more seriously. Now I'm worried that they might not take this one as seriously, because they're coming off of 3 consecutive wins. They won twice in London. They beat the Colts, getting the season sweep over them. The Colts look like their main competition in the NFC South. You can make the case for the Texans too. Texans have the same record as the Colts and have beaten the Jaguars. But I think the Jaguars are going to have their chest puffed out a little bit in this one, and they'll be saying, "Oh, the Saints aren't that good. We can handle them." I know the Saints have a 3-3 record, but they're going to be able to look and say, "Oh, they lost to the Texans last week." Again, I know the Texans beat the Jaguars, but I still just think that the Jaguars aren't going to be quite up for this game. I think if there's going to be a flat spot for them, it's going to be here with their injured quarterback. So I think the Saints can grind out a victory. So if this spread is -1, I like them okay here. But at the same time, I don't love the idea of backing Derek Carr against a good defense. So I'm not really bullish on this game either way. I just think there's a couple of reasons to be a little skittish about the Jaguars in this spot. So I'm going to back the Saints, kind of hold my nose and do that, and just hope that I don't have to make a decision between a team that I'm not super high on and a team with an injured quarterback too often throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I don't really want to back an injured quarterback, but I feel like I've gotten burned on these so many this times this year. Like, the only time it really worked out was worked out a couple of times, like going against the Bengals in week 3 against the Rams. That was a push, but then week 4 against the Titans, and the Titans won easily. Like, I felt like every other time I try to guess the injured quarterback, I was wrong. Like, Bengals week 5 against the Cardinals, like Joe Burrow was suddenly healthy. That same week, the Saints were playing a game, and I thought Derek Carr was gonna be injured, and he was healthy. And like the week before, I didn't bet Derek Carr because he was in practice all week, and then he was not able to throw downfield. And like, this could be like, would it surprise you at all if like Trevor Lawrence is just 100% and he just beats the Saints? I can see that happening. Like, unfortunately, we just don't know. Like, we just don't have enough data on this stuff. So like, the one thing I don't want to do is that, like, I don't want to bet this game just because like there's so many question marks here, and like I've done pretty well on Thursday nights as well. I just don't really like a side here. I don't want to back the Saints because I don't like them at all. I think they're pretty overrated, and like defense, they're a really good defense, but their offensive line sucks. And Derek Carr it's just not a good quarterback. He was benched last year for Jarrett Stidham. I know that they're going to move on, but still, it's not like he was playing well and he was crying at the press conference and stuff like that. He's not that good. The Saints overpay for him, and they can't block for him. So I don't know. This game just seems overall like so underwhelming. Like, if Lawrence were healthy, I would definitely be on the Jaguars here. Like, I get the fatigue, and I could definitely see that happening, like them not showing up here. But I just don't know if they showed up against the Colts. Like, I know they won by 17, but they were outgained by 100-something yards. It was just Gardner Minshew throwing to the other team nonstop. Like, that's why the Jaguars won. Like, I don't know if the Jaguars had their full 100% effort in that game. It was just like a fluke circumstances that they had a blowout win. So yeah, long story short, I just don't know what to make of this game right now because we don't know the health of Lawrence. And if it's CJ Beathard, I usually want to back a good team playing a good backup quarterback. But at the same time, I want to do some research into like how backup quarterbacks have done against top 10 defenses, because that was another thing last week with Minshew going against the Jaguars top 10 defense. I think like I really want to see how they've done in the past, because usually I like this angle. But I feel like I've won when they've gone against like mediocre or bad defenses, and I just want to see how they've done against top 10 defenses. So that's something I'm going to do like either later tonight or tomorrow. Just really dig into this, but yeah, like I said, just not really excited to bet this one. I have the Jaguars penciled in, but I think this is the first Thursday night game I'm not going to bet. Maybe there's another one, but I just have no interest here.
Yeah, this is my least favorite Thursday night game so far. I really don't think that there's a clear advantage on either side. So we're on the same page here. And I would definitely have wanted to side with the Jaguars if Beathard was playing, because we'd at least be getting the 3. And I feel like the Jaguars could elevate themselves enough in that situation to cover that. But like you said, it's hard to know. If you do research and you find out backup quarterbacks going against like top tier defenses really don't do well, then that would be another reason for me to be like, well, I wouldn't want to back the Jaguars in that scenario, but I wouldn't want to back the Saints as 3-point favorites. So I think this is just an ugly game. I think this is one where we watch and we say, all right, we learned something about these two teams and try to figure out what it means for betting them or fading them going forward.
Chris says, please research backup quarterbacks on Thursday Night Football as well. The one example I can remember is when Nick Mullins came in and pulled that upset that no one saw coming. So
I lost so much money on that. I lost like an absurd amount of money on that. Oh my God. I bet like probably 5 units on that, and it was bad.
Yep. I remember that was the last time I submitted a super contest entry in early, because I was like, oh man, they have a backup quarterback here no one's ever heard of. Let me take the other side. And he had an amazing performance. It's so good that Brett Favre called him and congratulated him, because they went to the same alma mater. So we had Chris says, if you combine all 4 NFC South teams into one team, could you create a functional offense? It's like funny. It's like, who's your quarterback at this point? Like, is it, I guess it's Derek Carr. Like, that's just so unappealing to me. Like, it's funny that like they probably wouldn't even be the best team in the NFL. Like if you combine all 4 teams.
You know? Yeah, I think you could even make a case like if you took the best offensive lineman and had that, you could maybe say Baker Mayfield might be your bet, because if he's not under pressure, he can do okay. But it's really, that division is pretty ugly right now, and the coaching there isn't helping anyone either. There is that division has some of the worst coaches in the league in it right now. It's really, really hideous to watch them try to figure out a winner there.
Yeah, you'd have some great receivers and some great running backs. Like you have Alvin Kamara, Bijan Robinson, and the coach would probably still give carries to Tyler Algier at that point. And I don't know, like the offensive line will still be the issue. Like I guess you have Atlanta's line, which is not bad, but like the other 3 offensive lines aren't that good. So you'd have bad quarterbacking with a mediocre offensive line play. So yeah, it's funny. Like put all 4 teams together, like they would probably not win most divisions, which is pretty sad. Anyway, let's get to the next game. We have speaking of the Falcons and Buccaneers in this division, Falcons and Buccaneers. We have Falcons. We have this line open up Buccaneers -2.5. It's still 2.5. So who do you like between the Falcons and the Buccaneers?
Yeah, so I like the Falcons here. I do like the Falcons here. I know it's hard. I know that watching Desmond Ridder throw 3 interceptions against Washington. Arthur Smith did the surrender cobra where he threw his hands up in the air and was like, that was an instant viral meme. And we've seen coaches do that a lot. Kellen Moore did that on Monday night too. So, when that happens, that something is a problem there. So offensively, the Falcons are not fun to back, but what matters for me in this is defense. I said it earlier, Baker Mayfield, when he's under pressure, you want to fade him. And the Falcons do generate solid pressure. According to the numbers that I have, they are 3rd, I believe, in pressure rate across the NFL, and they don't blitz very often. So they should be able to hold Baker Mayfield and that offense in check, keep them from scoring a lot. The 2 times in the 2 Buccaneers losses this year against the Eagles and the Lions, Mayfield was under pressure a lot, and the Buccaneers only scored a combined 17 points in those games. So I know the Falcons will probably make this a little more painful than it should be, but I do think that they should win this game. The concern that you might have about the Falcons looking at this is you're saying to yourself, the Buccaneers have a top 10 run defense. They only allow 83.8 yards per rushing yards per game. So how is that offense going to move the ball consistently? Well, I would like to tell Arthur Smith that probably the best way to jumpstart this offense is to get the ball to Bijan Robinson actually in space, as opposed to, pounding the rock with Tyler Algier repeatedly and then putting Bijan in and trying to run him up the middle when the offensive line has already blocked a lot for a lesser back. I would give Bijan Robinson more touches, get him in space, get Desmond Ridder some easy throws to him, just get the ball from Ridder to Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson close to the line of scrimmage. Let them make plays after the catch, and you might have a chance to have a better offense than you think, and you might make fewer mistakes throwing the ball than you would think. So, anyway, I'm getting kind of tired of watching Arthur Smith trying to do this. I was kind of high on what he might be able to do, given that I thought the identity that the team had last year on offense was going to suit this personnel group well, but he just doesn't seem to know how or when to get the ball to his best players. So that could hamstring the Falcons, but I do think they have the advantage on defense here, so I'm willing to back them here, even though the number's not 3. I think if this number was 3, the Sharps would try to hammer it.
Do you think Arthur Smith knows that they spent a top 10 pick on Bijan? Do you think he's like, oh, this guy has a weird name, sounds like mustard. Maybe I'll give him some carries. Like, it just seems like he doesn't understand how good this guy is. And Chris is asking, like, how do you think Bijan will do on special teams when Arthur Smith tries him there? Like, you mean it like kicker? Like he'll play him over Younghoe Koo at this point? Because like it feels like Arthur Smith would do something like that.
I mean, the thing that bugs me is, like, I get it. You want to mix in Tyler Algier because he was good as a rookie and, he can be a between-the-tackle bruiser. Like, I get it. You want to mix it both in. But Algier continues to get more carries than Robinson. And it just, like, he's not putting Robinson in position to succeed. And like you said, he's a first-round pick. Like, what are we doing? Spent the 8th overall pick on this guy to use him as, like, he's a platoon with this guy, and when we put him in the game, we're going to put him in obvious situations. It's like a worse version of what the Lions were doing with Jahmyr Gibbs earlier in the season, because at least David Montgomery was producing results. Tyler Algier, not as much.
Yeah, Chris says I was thinking more long snapper. Yeah, I mean, it's top 10 pick, not like the 31st pick in the first round, like top 10 pick. Like, this guy's a generational talent, and you're playing Tyler Algier over him. It's like, Algier's a fine player. Like, if he's a good number 2 back, like I don't know. It's so ridiculous. I do like the Falcons though. Like what are we doing with this Buccaneer team? Like we'll talk about the Lions later, but what gets me is like I think the overreaction to that game is insane. Like, I mean, we both love the Lions. I bet them win the Super Bowl. So don't get me wrong, Lions fans here. But like the reaction to the Lions beating the Buccaneers 20-6 was like, oh my God, the Lions, they're going to the Super Bowl, huh? They're Super Bowl contender. I'm like, well, first of all, you're late. Like we bet the Lions at the beginning of the season in the summer to win the Super Bowl. Okay. But second, like, why would a win over Tampa spark this reaction? Like, Tampa sucks. Like, they were 3-1 last week. Now they're 3-2. But like, what have they done this season? Like, just look at their wins against Minnesota week 1. They had to have Kirk Cousins self-destruct in that game for them to win. And in that game, Minnesota outgained them by 120 yards. So it's not like Tampa was the best team on the field that week. In week 2, they played Chicago, and that was a game where Justin Fields scrambled twice after the opening drive. And it was still a 3-point game at the end. And then Justin Fields threw a pick 6. That was another bad beat, by the way. Their third win was against the Saints. 26-9 looks impressive on paper until you realize that Derek Carr was playing hurt and he couldn't throw the ball downfield. Those are the 3 wins. Otherwise, they've gotten blown out by the Eagles and blown out by the Lions. Now, the Falcons aren't as good as those teams, but the Falcons play good defense. They run the ball, should at least run the ball well. And they have some good weapons like Drake London. Kyle Pitts finally looks healthy. Like, he was dealing with an injury earlier in the year, and now he's healthy. I'm concerned about Arthur Smith, like, putting his players in the wrong spots, and like maybe Desmond Ridder self-destructs again. But I think the Falcons are the better team overall, and they're underdogs. So I like getting that. I wish we were getting the +3. But one more thing to consider is that Tampa has Buffalo coming up on the Thursday night. So they might be looking ahead to that game. Sure, this is not a divisional game against Buffalo, but that's a marquee matchup. And, they're looking at this Atlanta team that lost to Washington. I don't know if Tampa's going to take them seriously. So I definitely like Atlanta. I'm hoping to get a 3 at some point, but even at 2.5, I'm going to bet them for a few units.
Yeah, I think I have 2 units penciled in on this one right now. I think you're right. The Buccaneers are just overrated. So, and as frustrating as the Falcons have been, I still think they have the best mix of talent in that division. If they had even just a solid quarterback instead of Desmond Ridder, I think you'd feel a lot better about this team. Like one of the comment sections debating imagine if they had traded up for Stroud. I mean, this team with Stroud would be very good, though we would be wondering how he would be developing under the tutelage of Arthur Smith. I think that's worth wondering about. But yeah, I think Stroud here would be pretty interesting, though. I still like Bijan in Atlanta, and I think they're going to end up with a veteran quarterback next year and potentially kind of shape into a contender in the NFC. But we'll see what they do. It's hard to predict with them.
Well, if they had Stroud, Desmond Ridder would still be starting, I feel like, with Arthur Smith there.
You might be right about that.
Yep, I guarantee it. Anyway, they should go to Heineke at this point, but I don't trust that to happen. Anyway, next game, we have more quarterback uncertainty here with both teams. The Raiders at the Bears. The sign opened up Raiders -1. It's up to 3. Justin Fields is doubtful. That was the line movement, going 1 to 3 for that. But Jimmy Garoppolo may not play either. He went to the hospital with a back injury. It didn't sound like that serious, but he still went to the hospital, and he could miss this game potentially. So we could have Brian Hoyer versus Tyson Bagent. So what do you make of this game?
Yeah, so this is a go girl game for me. I don't have any interest in this because on the one hand, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play in this game. And that means either Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell is going to be a 3-ish point road favorite. I don't know how the line would move based off of that, but we're going to be getting someone you don't want starting at quarterback as a road favorite against the team they don't have too many advantages over. So can't say I'm excited about that. I kind of hope Aiden O'Connell starts because I want to see what he can do. Brian Hoyer, fun fact, has not won a start since 2016, and it's not because he hasn't had chances. He's just 0-9 in his last 9 starts. So, he starts the game. I get immediately scared by that, even though the Bears haven't been good. At the same time, I have no interest in backing Tyson Bagent to cover a spread, given that he's an undrafted rookie who played Division II college football. And he looked good at the combine. He looked good in the preseason. So I like having him around as a developmental quarterback. But the Bears' decision to jettison PJ Walker because Bagent outplayed him in the preseason was not a good one. You don't want to have to throw the undrafted Division II rookie into the lineup in this situation when you're not playing well. And Bagent, he could look good. He could completely avoid turnovers. He could have shaken off the jitters against the Vikings and just be ready to, do at least solid against a weak defense like the Raiders. Or he could throw 4 interceptions and the Raiders could blow them out because Bagent simply isn't ready for the pro level. So I just have absolutely no interest in backing either of these sides. The reason I'm penciling the Bears in is because I don't think that either Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell deserves to be a 3-point road favorite. So yeah, this is a go girl game to me, but I'm interested to hear if you have any stronger thoughts on it than me.
Yeah, I actually like the Bears here. Surprisingly, I think I like getting 4 key numbers with fading either Aiden O'Connell or Brian Hoyer. Like, okay, if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, sure, I wouldn't bet the Bears. But if it's a backup here, like you're asking Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell to win by 4 or more on the road when they don't have any wins in any, like at any point within the, what'd you say, 8 years or 7 years?
Yeah, since 2016. Brian Hoyer was actually on the Bears the last time he won a start.
Wow. Okay. So revenge game, you're saying. So that's another reason to like the Bears. Anyway, no, I like getting the 4 key numbers here. If this is 2.5, I wouldn't have much interest, but like +3s sounds good to me. It feels like this game is going to be decided by 3, unless there's a safety involved, of course. But I think that it's going to be a close game, like Bears by 3, Raiders by 3. So we get the win or the push with the +3. Sharps liked Chicago a lot. So, you might be thinking, oh, the Sharps, they always bet Denver, and they always bet New England. Like, of course, they're going to get this wrong. Actually, it's so funny. The Sharps this year are 23-20 against the spread, which doesn't sound great. But if you take away all the games they bet on the Broncos or the Patriots, they're 23-13 against the spread, which is like almost 64%. It's like really good. So if they're on to something here with the Bears, I think, because of what I said with O'Connell and Hoyer, you don't have to worry about Tyson Bagent going against a great defense or even a good defense or even average defense or even a below average defense. Like the Raiders are, I believe, 27th in defensive EPA. Yeah, they have Max Crosby, but if the Bears are smart enough to double team him, then what else are the Raiders going to do defensively? Like they can't stop anything. What I want to do before I make a bet here, I want to, in addition to doing the backup quarterback research, I want to watch film on Tyson Bagent from the preseason to see if we have anything here. I remember doing something similar with who was the quarterback who started for the Lions on Thanksgiving though? That one
David Blau.
It was Blau, right? Yeah, I remember watching film on Blau in the preseason. I was like, oh, this guy's like not bad. So I bet on Blau and it ended up working out. I guess another bad defense. He played Chicago that year. And so I think that I think the Bears seem like a decent bet unless I think Tyson Bagent was terrible in the preseason, then maybe I won't have any interest. But he was I don't know if he set records in Division II, but I know he is one of the best Division II quarterbacks ever, which is like, okay, Division II, but still like there have been quarterbacks from smaller schools who have performed well in the past. Like Tony Romo's Eastern Illinois. I know that's the 1AA, but still, and like Kurt Warner was Northern Iowa. Like maybe Tyson Bagent could be okay. Maybe it could be a good a good backup in the NFL. And if so, then the Bears should be able to cover the spread or at least push. So I like the Bears a little bit, but like I said, I'm going to do more research on Tyson Bagent.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you on the Bears. I'm just not really I don't want to back Tyson Bagent if I can help it, but I think they're unequivocally the right side because the Raiders have a 3-3 record, so people think they're better than they are. You and I were talking about that earlier before I think we came on here. So I think the public might look at this and be like, oh, this is going to be easy for the Raiders, even if Jimmy G doesn't play. Because there's general sentiment within the public that Jimmy G isn't that good. But, I mean, I think he's fine. I think he's just, he's often injured. So, anyway, I think that the Bears are the right side, especially if we're getting 3. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up betting on this game and we'll become huge Tyson Bagent fans moving forward. His dad is actually, I happen to know this, his dad is like a world champion arm wrestler, believe it or not. So he should have a strong arm, I would think, given that pedigree.
Yeah, I think I heard that on the broadcast. So, yeah, it makes sense. That's another thing. It's like people saying the Raiders are good. Like, no, come on. Like, I don't think there's much of a difference between the Raiders and Broncos. Like, I think I'd view them equally. The Raiders won in Denver by 1 point, so they're pretty even. And the Broncos were 3-point favorites in Chicago. I know that Justin Fields played in that game, but Denver also had their starting quarterback too. So if the Raiders have their backup, I think this line is. I think it's probably where it should be, but I think I still like getting the 3 either way. So. We have a question here from Carter. Thoughts on the over? Bears have been the best over team, but how does backup quarterbacks affect overs? Well, I mean, the total has dropped to 37.5. So like, I feel like that's like the backup quarterback is baked into the line, and like both these defenses still suck. So I think I would lean toward the over as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you lean the over if you think that the running games can get going. It gets a little hairy because if both quarterbacks start really slowly and they can't move the ball and you get through the first quarter tied at 0 and you're talking about like a 3-3 halftime game, then you're not going to feel good about it. But if you think the running games will have a good day, I would say bet the over. And I think both of these have enough talent on the ground to probably get over that 37.5 mark. Because I think Roshan Johnson should play this week too. I think that'll help out Chicago a little bit on the ground.
Yeah, defensive ratings, this is EPA. The Raiders are 25th, Bears are 28th. So I think the 2 backups should do well in this game, relatively. So anyway, we have the next game, which is another game where we have quarterback question marks. Browns at the Colts. So last week we had Anthony Richardson go out, and now it sounds like he's out for the year. So it's going to be Gardner Minshew again. The Browns, we don't know if Deshaun Watson is going to come back. He has a bruise in his rotator cuff somehow. So either he's going to play or it's going to be Philip Walker again. This lineup at 2.5 down to 2. So who do you like this game?
Yeah, so I was a little torn on this one because I thought this might be an overreaction spot for the public based off the Browns just beat the 49ers, but it was a lot closer to not being a win. And I know the Browns covered, and we thought that would happen because they're a good team starting a backup quarterback. And even against a good defense like the 49ers, the Browns have that great defense that can keep them in games too. So I think that was definitely the right call, but I mean, if Jake Moody makes that kick at the end of the game, we're probably talking about this game at least a little bit differently because people will be like, oh, the Browns gave a good run to the 49ers, but they'd be coming into this game at 2-3. So this would be viewed a lot more equally, whereas I think the Browns have a little more juice coming into this one, given that the Colts just looked not so great in a loss to the Jaguars, at least in terms of turnovers. Anyway, with all that said, I like the Browns. I'm not sure I'm going to bet this game just yet because I think that they could end up coming out flat here because they just beat one of the NFL's Goliath teams while playing PJ Walker at quarterback. So I think they might be like feeling themselves a little bit after that game. But at the same time, I think that they are probably the better team in this matchup, and they match up better with the Colts defense than I think people will realize because the Colts just lost Grover Stewart, who's the defensive tackle, who's one of the best run stoppers in the league, for 6 games due to a performance-enhancing drug suspension. So with Stewart out, I think the Browns will be able to run the ball more, and I think that's going to help them regardless of who plays quarterback. If Deshaun Watson's not 100%, I don't want him coming back in this game. It's not like he's been good anyway. And PJ Walker should be able to do enough, provided that he doesn't turn the ball over, to kind of keep this game in control overall. And like I said, with that absence in the middle of that defensive line, I think Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt can have solid days overall. But at the end of the day, I see the winner of this game being the backup quarterback that can best take advantage of the defense in front of him. And I'm not willing to back the Gardner Minshew against top 10, really a top 1 or 2 defense in the Browns right now, just because he looked pretty shaky against the Jaguars. He turned the ball over a lot. And I think looking back to last year, he had his share of turnovers against the Cowboys too. So even though he's moved the ball and should continue to move the ball, he might make those key mistakes that ultimately cost him the game. So I'm going to back the Browns right now at -2. Like I said, not sure I'm going to bet this game. Want to know more about the status of Deshaun Watson and PJ Walker and see what's going on there. But I think the Browns are the right side right now.
Yeah, I think we got fooled by Gardner Minshew in that Texans game in week 2. It's like, yeah, he played well, but it's against Houston. So maybe not that impressive. Houston's defense is 24th overall. So Jacksonville's, I believe, was number 8. It was number 9. So definitely a far cry from that. So we saw Minshew melt down, and that could happen here. As you said, the Browns are top 1 defense. They're the number 1 defense in the NFL. And we saw what they did to San Francisco. Like, granted, the Niners had injuries, but still, like, they still shut down Brock Purdy for the first time. They have a great front. It's like everything in the defense is awesome, and Minshew's going to struggle. So, like, what I think, ideally, from a betting perspective, if Philip Walker starts again, I would like the Browns because at this number, it seems like they should be able to just win outright. So unless they win by 1, they'll either cover or push the spread. So I feel like if it's Walker, they're still going to be playing hard because they know that they need to. The other players know that they're going to have to play like 110% to win with Walker, just because he almost threw that game away a couple times, especially that throw at the end, which was ridiculous. But if it's Watson, this becomes trickier because I think this line would rise to like 4.5 or 5, maybe 5.5. And in that case, the Colts would look a little bit more appealing, just because I feel like they like at that point you would have that letdown spot that you were talking about with the Browns, like having their starting quarterback back in the lineup. I think they're definitely a letdown after beating the 49ers. So that could let the Colts come in and cover the spread. But then again, like, I still don't want to bet Minshew against the top number 1 defense. I really want to do research into this, like how backups have done against these great defenses. But we have a sample size that's, albeit small, but we have it this year where Minshew just tore up the Texans and then he had a meltdown against the Jaguars. So, I mean, the Browns defense is even better. So, like, we'll have to see what happens with the injuries. If it's Walker, I'll be on the Browns. If it's Watson and the line goes to close to 6, I think I'll side with the Colts, but I don't see myself betting either way in that scenario.
Yeah, if the line creeps up towards 6, I'm not going to want to back the Browns because, like you said, let down. It's just it happens, and they can take their foot off the gas and still beat the Colts, or they could just go with a run-heavy game plan. If they bring Watson back and they're worried about his shoulder and don't want him throwing too much, they could end up slowing the game to a crawl and making it like a field goal type game. And I don't want to get caught on the wrong side of it, but I think you're onto something with the backup quarterbacks against top 10 defenses because even the Browns, like they obviously beat the 49ers, but PJ Walker very nearly gave that game away several times. So, they kind of won in spite of Walker instead of the rest of the team elevating to the next level and making Walker look better than he was. It was like really a win in spite of him and because the 49ers got banged up. So I'm interested to see what type of results that research that you do turns up.
How do you think that game would have gone if Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, and Debo Samuel didn't get hurt?
That's tough to say. I think the Browns may still cover. But, if the 49ers are stalled out so much after a certain point, if they were up like 7 or 10 most of the game, PJ Walker would have had more opportunities to throw interceptions like we saw with Gardner Minshew against the Jaguars. So I think it might have ended up being it could have probably been 7 to 14 point game. So I hate to say it like that because the line was right there in the middle of that. So I'm not giving you a good answer either way, but I think the 49ers probably would have comfortably won and we probably would have been hoping for a backdoor cover there.
Yeah, I think they were up 10-0, right? So, I feel like that would have continued, and you may have seen that scenario where Phil Walker threw those interceptions you're talking about. So it could have gotten ugly for sure. I mean, we saw Dorian Thompson-Robinson self-destruct against Baltimore. Like, granted, Walker's better than him, a lot better. Everyone's better than him. But still, it's like against an elite defense like that, it's a tough ask to have a backup quarterback come in and thrive in that scenario. Next game, we have speaking of the Ravens, we have the Lions at the Ravens. This line opened up Ravens -2.5. It went up to 3 pretty quickly. So who do you like in this game?
I feel like I might be missing something. I like the Lions here. I like them at +3, and I have this let's see what I have this penciled in for. 2 to 3 units here. Sorry, guys, still not getting to 4 yet.
Well, people are asking for 9 to one up me for pick of the month. So
9-unit pick's going to take a lot out of me. The one time I think I had anything close to that, I blew it on a pick. I think it was like Bengals Jets, and I got suckered into taking the Bengals the year they were the worst team in the football in the National Football League. So you don't want me betting 9 units on things for the most part, guys. If I have a very strong inclination, I'll keep it to 4 or 5. Hasn't happened often this year, but it will at some point, I'm sure. Anyway, the reason I like the Lions here is I just think that the way that they play is really just solid. And I think that I don't like how the Ravens have looked this year entirely. Like, they're good. They're a good team. But I feel like they've gotten lucky on several instances to cover or to win, and more convincingly than the box scores show. We saw it against the Titans last week. Malik Willis very nearly had a backdoor cover against them that would have probably crushed our spirits, given how bad last week was. But they were able to just barely escape with that. I've seen their offense stall out just a little bit too often. I know they're getting healthier on the offensive line, which has been helpful, and their receiving core is starting to get more chemistry with Lamar Jackson. So I think the Ravens will be better down the stretch. But I'm not a big fan of them as 3-point favorites here, just given that the Lions are a really strong team. And the Ravens have just had some spots where their offense hasn't come together entirely. I know they're healthier on defense. I know that they stopped the run really well, and the Lions have a bunch of banged up running backs. So might be a one-dimensional type of game for Jared Goff. But we've seen that he can lead this team to victory with a strong passing offense. And he has Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has Sam Laporta. Josh Reynolds has looked good. Jamison Williams had a good catch last week down the field. So I like their weaponry. I like the Lions' chances in this one. So where we're getting the key number of 3, I'd like to back them here. I think that they have a good chance of covering. And I didn't really see any look-ahead potential for them or any letdown here. But I feel like I might be missing something because I saw this line was 2.5 and moved to 3. And earlier in the day, I was like, man, that does not jive with what I was thinking. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. If there's any element that I'm like really just not at all in my head that I'm completely missing.
So Chris says, "Don't waver when Walt picks Baltimore." Jacob, hold your ground. So I'll throw a couple things at you, and this is why I like Baltimore. One, I don't have to check the weather. The weather is supposed to be like super bad in this game. It's going to be like 20-mile-an-hour winds, which is like pretty bad for Jared Goff. Like Jared Goff, it plays so much better inside or when the weather is nice. It's kind of like what I missed last week. I talked about how Jared Goff doesn't play nearly as well outdoors as he does inside, but the weather was perfect in Tampa last week. It's gonna be pretty brutal here. It's gonna be hard to throw. And given that David Montgomery's out, like the Lions are not gonna be able to run the ball really well. Like Jameer Gibbs might be back. If not, it's gonna be Craig Reynolds. Like I don't see the Lions running on the Ravens, who have a top 5 run defense. So it's gonna be one-dimensional here for Jared Goff in a very windy game. Like I feel like that's pretty problematic for Detroit. Like if they had Montgomery, I think you'd have a chance that they'd run the ball. But given how like Gibbs has looked mediocre as a runner, not as a receiver out of the backfield, he's looked good there, but just a runner, it's pretty bad. So yeah, this one-dimensional team here. And getting to my second point, I don't know where I see the motivation here with the Lions. Like, think about where these two teams are right now. The Lions are 5-1. Everyone is now on TV saying how great they are, which I think they are. I think they are great. I have them number 5 in my power rankings, but everyone is saying how great they are now. I wonder if they're going to be a little full of themselves. And also, they play in a division where like they're clearly ahead of everyone else. The next team is the Packers. They're 2-3. And the Lions already beat them. So like the Lions are just so comfortably ahead in their division. Like they don't need a game like this. Whereas Baltimore they're in a 4-way race in this AFC North now that the Bengals are into it. The Bengals are 3-3, Steelers are 3-2. The Browns are 3-2. The Ravens are a little bit ahead of those teams, but if they lose, they could risk falling to last place even. So or tied for last place. So I think it's a tough spot for the Lions here because they really don't need this win. Baltimore does. I saw someone saying like there might be London hangover, but I think teams that are coming back from London without a bye are like 5 or like even against the spread. So I wouldn't worry about that, despite what happened with Buffalo last week. So yeah, I mean, I think that the line movement here kind of tells me everything I need to know. Like the Sharps took Baltimore at -2.5, and it makes so much sense given the wind conditions and also the motivation.
Yeah, no, I get your point for sure, and I don't like the wind. I don't like Jared Goff outside, so that's probably what I was missing here. I think I'm still going to stick with the Lions for 2 reasons. One, I think, maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I think Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson are going to know how to get the ball to Jameer Gibbs in space, like what the Falcons should be doing with Bijan Robinson. This game maybe runs more toss plays and just outside zone so that he can just have more free space to move within because he's super fast and he has really good elusiveness. So I'm thinking that might allow the Lions to keep this one closer. And then the other thing that I'm thinking is I totally get your point that the Lions could come out flat, but at the same time, they're like in this big opportunity moment now where everyone was talking about San Francisco and Philadelphia being up there. Now Detroit's kind of on their level. And I think they're going to want to chase that 1 seed because their whole season is going to be about backing up the hype that they got. And frankly, when they lost to the Seahawks after beating the Chiefs, I was kind of like, oh my God, is this here we go again where they got injured and now they're not going to live up to expectations? And they've done well since then. So I'm going to stick with them at +3. But I am definitely scared by the points that you brought up. I don't like backing Jared Goff in poor weather, and I think that was what I was missing, and that's why it moved.
Yeah, the weather is definitely an issue, and I think it really benefits Baltimore because you have Lamar Jackson who can really scramble around, and we had Chris asking if I have any notes on the Lions versus scrambling quarterbacks. I kind of looked this year, and they played Mahomes in week 1, and Mahomes had a good rushing day. But yeah, they still beat him, and then like they I don't think they really played any other mobile quarterbacks this year.
I will say this was not this year. This was like whenever they last played the Ravens, I think it was maybe Dan Campbell's first year.
Yeah,
I think the Ravens only won that game on like Justin Tucker's record-setting field goal, if you remember that.
The 66-yard field goal. Yeah, but I remember Baltimore being super flat in the game. They dropped so many passes. So they were coming off a big win in week 2. That was a week 3 game. And I remember Baltimore was like favored by 6.5. I took the Lions because I thought Baltimore was going to be flat. And like they played a horrible game and they still won.
Yeah, I think I remember that Lamar Jackson did not scramble well in that game, but it might have been because they were flat, or the coaching staff might have been like, "Don't scramble this time."
Um, yeah. So, golf. Alex says golf is 0-2 versus the Ravens, and both were home games for him. Um, I don't know about I can't remember the last one, but yeah, obviously Justin Tucker. We talked about how he won that game. So yeah, I think this is an interesting one. I can't wait to watch it. And to everyone saying that the Lions are going to be chasing the number one seed, I mean I agree. I think they know that they can maybe get the number one seed, but I think it's a little too early for that. Like if this were like late November, December, like maybe the Lions don't get tripped up here, but I think that coming off like a win that everyone thinks is big and everyone's talking them up, like I feel like it's gonna be hard for them to kind of meet expectations there. So, and I think there's a reason why this line moved, as I said. So, yeah, well, we'll just agree to disagree on this one. I don't feel like too strongly about this. It's like a 2-unit pick, I think, for me. So nothing crazy.
It's like two, like I said, it was 2 to 3 for me, so not crazy. But the people in the chat want me to be assertive, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to stick with it, and
Nice.
then if I'm inevitably wrong, I'll come back crying next week with my tail between my legs, telling you I'll never go against you again. So we'll see.
Carter bringing up last year, Fields ran for over 250 in their 2 games. Yeah, Fields had that crazy game. The Lions still won, but Fields made it interesting. Fields threw that pick 6 that really helped the Lions win. Okuda had the pick 6, I remember. And then Allen ran for 78 on the Lions. That was Thanksgiving. So yeah, this year they haven't really played any mobile quarterbacks except for Mahomes. I mean, he can run obviously, but he doesn't like to run. Like he's pass first. Like they haven't played a run first quarterback yet. So. And Jackson has been throwing more, but in a super windy game like this, he's going to be running a lot. A lot of support here for Jacob. So,
I love it. I'm getting support today. That's nice. It's better than the angry email I got because I spelled Walter Payton's name wrong by accident in an article.
Well, I got many hate mails over the years for stuff even like milder than that. So
Yep.
it's people tend to be bored and then they get angry for some reason. All right, next game we have Bills at the Patriots. This line to open up. Bills -8.5. It's up to 9.5. The Sharps are on the Bills. They've learned the lesson. They're not taking the Patriots. Who do you like here?
Yeah, this is Bills or nothing for me. I'm not backing the Patriots anytime soon. They just have too many problems with which to compete. I mentioned it earlier. They have so many issues on offense. Mac Jones might be a massive part of that problem, but the bigger problem is it's still impossible to tell whether or not he is the root of the problem or if it's all the stuff going on around him that is contributing to his failures. Like, we don't know. He could be like maybe a Kirk Cousins type, or he could be completely dreadful, but he's going to look completely dreadful no matter what because of the poor blocking and receivers around him that just can't get open. Let Jacoby Myers go, which I'm still mad about it. So anyway, we've got all this stuff going against the Patriots here on offense. And defensively, I think one of the things that I've missed over the last couple of weeks is I thought they'd be able to get more out of the defense without Christian Gonzalez and Matt Judon around. And I think that they're just not as deep at the pass rusher and cornerback positions as I had hoped they'd be. J.C. Jackson looked okay last week, though, at times. So that was kind of encouraging considering that he had been gone from the system for like a couple of years. But anyway, long story short, you can't back the Patriots with how they're currently playing. I don't want to trust the Bills as big road favorites either, though, because Josh Allen is banged up. He's nursing a sore shoulder. And look, this team had trouble on offense against the Giants last week. And I mean, we're talking about the Giants. Like, the Giants are not good. I get that they were better last week because their offense is actually semi put together, but I'm not overreacting to that game against the Giants. But I was like, what on earth is happening? Like, I thought that their offense would play well and their defense might not because of the injuries. But it was the exact opposite, which was very weird. But I think Buffalo may have been looking ahead to this game a bit. They probably took the Giants lightly when they shouldn't have. And they should be able to crush the Patriots, even if Josh Allen can't throw as much as usual, and even if that defense has some key playmakers missing, which it will because Matt Milano and Tre'Davious White are out for the season. So I don't know if I'm going to bet on this game actually because of those like key injuries to the Bills. But I have the Bills penciled in from 0 units right now is what I wrote. And but you can't bet the Patriots under any circumstances at this point. Don't do it until they show signs of life, and that may be never at this point.
What would the spread have to be for you to bet, let's say, 3 units on the Patriots? Because
Three?
because obviously there's a number. Like if the Bills were favored by 80, obviously you would bet the Patriots because the Bills are not going to win by 80. So like, what would the number be for to bet 3 units on the Patriots? Just curious.
Man, for 3 units, like
Yes.
I feel like I might swap sides if it got to 14 and a half.
Oh,
Um,
really? Okay.
I'm maybe a little more confident in Mac Jones than most people, though. So that's probably, but to get up to three, I probably would have like 21 and a half bare minimum, maybe more.
Yeah, I was thinking of something like that, like 19, 20, something like that. Which like kind of makes me think is like, wait, are the Patriots the right side here? Because well, first of all, you said Josh Allen has a shoulder injury of some sort. He wasn't like himself. They're missing their top corner, they're missing the top linebacker. Matt Milano's absence is huge. Like they couldn't stop the run without him. And then the Bills could be looking ahead to playing Tampa. I mean, like obviously this is a divisional game. That is not, but Tampa has a better record, and the Bills have seen how bad the Patriots are. Like it would not surprise me at all if the Bills once again don't take their opponent seriously and just show up and go through the motions and win by 7, and like the Patriots cover. But I can't do it. Just like way too many times it's burned by this team. If I hadn't seen any of those games and I was just looking at these two teams like with like a fresh slate, I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I can see the Patriots covering. Like maybe they get the backdoor cover, or maybe the Bills just slack off, and this is like a 27-20 game or something like that. But I can't do it. So I'm right there with you. Bills for no units, but yeah, I've just been burned way too many times here.
Yeah, like part of me when I first saw this line is like, oh man, I kind of wanted to fade the Bills this week because of that. It's unfortunate because this like the Bills are in a perfect fading spot now that we know that Josh Allen is banged up and they have those defensive injuries, and they've played the Giants. Now they're playing the Patriots. And now they're playing the Bucks on a short week. So it's like they're in a good fade spot, but I feel like we couldn't really fade them. I know that didn't pan out against the Giants, but look, the Patriots couldn't cover or beat the Raiders. So I know that we got a bad beat in that game, but I don't have confidence that they can move the ball on the Bills.
Yeah. Gold glasses. You have to like the Patriots, but no one could be that dumb to back them again. Yeah, that's definitely the same sentiment. Chris asking, does Matt Milano on top of Tre'Davious White ruin the Bills' Super Bowl chances? I don't know about like completely ruin it. It definitely hurts it a lot. Like before those two injuries, I'm like, man, the Bills are really good. I want to bet them to win the Super Bowl. Like I was hoping they get tripped up like against Jacksonville. Like that's what I wanted to see. And then I'm like, okay, we're gonna get maybe some decent value on them, like something closer to 10-1, maybe like 8-1 or something. But then Matt Milano got hurt on top of Tre'Davious White. So like now I just don't have any I just don't have any motivation to bet them to win the Super Bowl. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that ultimately that's just going to create too many holes in the playoffs when they play these elite offenses when they were all gelled. Like they're going to have to get past the Chiefs. They're going to have to get past the. I know the Bengals haven't looked good yet, but they're starting to round into form more. So you've got at least those two teams, and then a few other teams that could give them a run. So I'm a little bit down on the Bills because of those injuries for sure.
Yeah, it's a shame because it feels like there's something with them every year. Yeah, it seems like a cursed franchise. Last of the early games, we have Redskins at the Giants. Line open up Redskins -1. It's up to 2. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so I swear this isn't an overreaction, and this is I'm going with the Giants here at +2. It's going to come down to who's at quarterback. So you guys listening will be happy to know that I have this game penciled in for 0 to potentially 4 units.
Wow.
This is a big injury report game for me. Look, we saw against the Bills that the Giants all of a sudden looked better overall as a team on offense, and they were able to move the ball somewhat consistently. Part of that was that they had Saquon Barkley back, but the other two bigger factors was that Tyrod Taylor played. And I think this was something I missed in my analysis of the game. Tyrod Taylor was coming in against a banged up defense as a guy who has solid mobility and is very accurate and doesn't turn the ball over. That's his number one thing. Like he's better than Daniel Jones right now, maybe not in terms of raw talent, but in the fact that he doesn't turn the ball over, he doesn't hold the ball too long, he doesn't make those negative plays that hurt you. And I think that's why the Giants were able to hang around with the Bills last week on Sunday Night Football. It was Tyrod Taylor and their offensive line improving. We spent Friday night, and this was my fault. I was making fun of the fact that Justin Pugh was on the Giants practice squad because I had thought that he retired, and he hadn't been on the Giants for several years. He had spent time with the Cardinals the previous 4. And I was like, oh, man, they really just called him off. And he said this in his intro for Sunday Night Football. He said he was coming in straight off the couch to play for them. And I thought he looked really good. He played at left guard, which is his normal position. He looked solid. Then he had to kick out to the left side because Joshua Ezeudu got hurt, and he's now on IR. And I just think that this offensive line is starting to look better with Pugh out there. And if Andrew Thomas comes back and he's there and Justin Pugh is there, they just signed Tyree Phillips, who was with them for 5 games last year and did pretty well. I don't know why they got rid of him. Very confusing personnel decisions from the Giants, but all of a sudden their offensive line looks a bit better, and Evan Neal has taken a step forward. So all that's to say, I think the Giants offense could actually move the ball. I think Washington, coming off of a win against Atlanta, might be a little overrated. Washington has tended to fluctuate the Commanders. They had that massive loss to the Bears on Thursday Night Football, and everyone was out on them. And everyone was like, oh, Washington's bad now. They're going to be terrible. Ron Rivera's going to get fired. Then they come back and they beat the Falcons. But we kind of went over this. The Falcons outgained Washington pretty significantly in that. It was Desmond Ritter's repeated turnovers that really sealed the game for Washington, and Arthur Smith's genuine inability to know how to call plays in the red zone. It just put Desmond Ridder in positions where he's not making mistakes. But anyway, long story short, I think the Giants offense can be competent enough in this spot to move the ball. Maybe if Tyrod Taylor plays, they might be able to take advantage of this Commanders secondary, which has been problematic this year. And I know a lot of people will say, well, Washington's strength is its defensive line, so won't it be able to take advantage of that offensive line? If Andrew Thomas plays and Justin Pugh's out there, I don't know that it's definite that it's going to be like a massive blowout as it's been in the past. Now, if it's Daniel Jones and he's holding the ball too long, sure, it's possible. But that improved offensive line at least gives them a chance. So I know +2 isn't any great shakes, but I don't think that these two teams are maybe all that different. I think the Giants are slightly worse, but I think they're getting better right now. I think Washington's kind of like the ultimate mirage team, and these NFC East games are always close. So I'm going to go with the Giants here for, again, 0 to 4 units. If Andrew Thomas is out and Daniel Jones is starting, I'm probably going to have less interest in this game, but Tyrod Taylor's playing and Justin Pugh's playing and Andrew Thomas is playing, I might like New York here.
Yeah, I like New York a lot. Chris saying there's no reason to bet the Giants. None. Look for a better spot, guys. I completely disagree. I think it's such a good opportunity to fade the Redskins like this. They have no business being favored by 2 on the road. I mean, you said these teams are pretty even. Maybe Redskins are a little bit better. Net EPA, the Redskins are 26th. The Giants are 28th. So you're asking the 26th best team in the NFL to cover a spread where they're favored on the road. That doesn't make sense to me. And the Giants are improving. They made the offensive line upgrades, Phillips and Pugh, and then maybe Andrew Thomas comes back. That'll be enormous. Like suddenly their offensive line would be solidified, and that was the weakness of their team. Like we saw Seattle get 11 sacks when Seattle doesn't even get good pressure on the quarterback otherwise. So you have that angle. Also, this is like one of those weird divisional things where one team for some reason has the edge over the other. The Giants have won 23 out of the last 33 meetings between these two teams, excluding the tie they had. It just, for some reason, the Giants have just dominated this rivalry for the past decade and a half. And it applied last year too. I remember there was one game where I think the Redskins were favored by 6 points, and the Giants came in and won as underdogs. And that was actually a game where I kind of remember this because there was a guy in the Westgate, in the Circa Survivor, who had 5 entries or something left, and he diversified all the entries. I think I talked about this on Thursday. But anyway, in that 1 week, he took the Redskins with every single one of his entries, and he lost. And I was signing up for the Circa Million, and the people at the counter were talking about that, and I thought it was funny, just hearing about that game again. But anyway, the Giants, they own this matchup. They could be the better team once these offensive linemen come back. Metrics wise, they're a tiny bit worse than the Redskins, but that doesn't account for Andrew Thomas potentially coming back. And we only had one game with Saquon Barkley really in recent weeks. So this I think the Giants are ascending, whereas the Redskins are descending. Like you said, like they had no business beating the Falcons. They're outgained by more than 200 yards. Before that, they got blown up by the Bears. Yeah, the week before that, like they took the Eagles down to the wire, but we'll talk about the Eagles later. But I think they're overrated. The Redskins otherwise have they barely survived Arizona at home. They beat Denver, but that doesn't really mean anything these days. The Jets went into Denver and won, and Denver can't beat anyone, and they almost lost to Chicago. So I think Washington's definitely overrated at this point, given the record. And the Giants are, despite the results that we saw Sunday night, I still think they're still underrated, even though they almost won. So, I like the Giants quite a bit. The injury report is definitely important, so watch out for that. If Thomas comes back, I love the Giants. They might be one of my top picks.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just a good spot. And Washington has the better record. But again, that game against Denver, they were trailing by a ton and they managed to make like a last second comeback. They beat the Cardinals in week 1, despite Sam Howell having some bad turnovers. And that Sam Howell was the wild card. He's looked pretty good at times this year. And I thought he comported himself pretty well against the Falcons, but he could just go right out and have a 3 interception game. That's just kind of the territory when you're starting a guy for really, he had one start before the season. So this is kind of his rookie year. So he's going to have some bumps in the road. And I feel like this could be one of them. And look, even if Washington wins this game, I think it's going to be really close. So I'm not comfortable backing them here.
One last thing I forgot to mention. You mentioned Sam Howell. The Giants blitz the highest clip in the NFL, so I think it's important to note how these quarterbacks do against the blitz when they face the Giants. When Sam Howell was not blitzed this year, he completes 70% of his passes on a 7.5 YPA, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Sounds really good, right? But when he's blitzed, his completion percentage drops 9 points to 61%. It's still not bad. But his YPA falls to 5.6. He has 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he's not handled the blitz well at all this year. So that does not bode well for him in this matchup.
Yeah, Wink will get after him a lot. That's like his calling card. Wink Martindale loves to blitz.
Yep. Chris saying, what happened to Daboll from coach of the year to this? I feel like it's definitely the personnel. Like the team can't block. Like if you can't block, you can't really do anything. I think the offensive line has taken a huge hit. Evan Neal has not made any strides like I thought he would. They just not made good personnel decisions on the offensive line. I feel like if they had better blocking, things would look a lot better for them right now.
Yeah, I thought Evan Neal did probably for the first time. I thought he was okay against the Bills. That's maybe a hopeful sign in the right direction, but I think you're right. It's about the blocking. And the other thing, Daboll won coach of the year last year because he got the Giants to the playoffs when they had no expectations. But if you look back at the schedule they played, it was super easy. And I know that they haven't played the hardest teams this year, but there's some amount of regression to the mean when it comes to those kinds of results. So they haven't been able to block. Daniel Jones hasn't looked good. The decision to pay Daniel Jones was, I still don't get why they didn't just slap him with the franchise tag and pay Barkley, because Barkley cost a quarter of the price and you could have gotten one more year of Jones just to say, hey, what is he going to look like if we pay him? That was a gross miscalculation.
Yep, it's pretty bad. Let's move on to late games. Before we get there, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. All that would mean a lot if you want to help support us. So we have Cardinals at the Seahawks. This line opened up Seahawks -8. It's down to 7.5 in some sports books. There's still a couple 8s out there. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so I forgot to do notes on this game. So
really?
I don't know how I did that. Must have missed that one. But off the cuff, I don't want to really back the Cardinals right now. But I feel like the Seahawks are overrated at the same time. So I don't know if I have a lot of interest in this game, and I might immediately go against what I said I was going to do. Gosh, this is tough. I mean, I feel like Seattle should have beaten Cincinnati last week. So I'm going to say that to start, because Geno Smith was in the red zone inside like the 10-yard line. It seemed like 4 or 5 times at the end of the game. They came away with no points because they kept going for the touchdown. He kept getting sacked. It was very strange. It almost felt like, he was like, all right, I can't win this game. And he just kind of sat in the pocket until he got sacked. Like that happens in Madden on certain difficulty levels. The quarterback is predetermined to have been sacked on the play. So he'll get sacked for like 30-yard losses. You're like, why didn't he just throw it away? That's what he looked like at times in that. So I'll say that if they had beaten the Bengals, this line may have been a little bit higher because the Cardinals just haven't been that impressive in recent weeks. But at the same time, we've seen that the Cardinals offense has enough juice within it to keep games kind of close. So I think the Seahawks are a bit overrated. They don't get a ton of pressure. Geno Smith hasn't looked super comfortable at any point. DK Metcalf has a little bit of a hip injury, so I don't know if that's bugging him. I know he came out of the game briefly last week, but he came back in. So I don't know if their offense just isn't firing on all cylinders right now, or if there's something beyond that going on. So I think I'm going to go with the Cardinals here for right now, even though I said I don't want to do this. I just think this line's a little bit high. But please feel free to talk me out of this one, as I'm clearly unprepared for it.
No, I like Arizona too. I think that this is one of those weird divisional things, like I talked about with the Giants and Redskins. The Giants have had the Redskins number. Arizona, for some reason, has done super well in Seattle. Dating back to 2013, they have outright upset wins 6 times since 2013. Not wins as they're favored by 3, they win. No, they're underdogs in all 6 of those games, and they won outright in Seattle 6 times since 2013. It's kind of crazy. They just tend to do super well in Seattle for some reason. And I think that Seattle might be a little lethargic. Like they definitely outplayed Cincinnati, as we kind of detailed at the start of the show. But Seattle had a tough game, and then they have to travel all the way back to the Pacific Northwest from the East Coast. I think they might be a little lethargic after that. Like, and two of the upset wins, by the way, happened after Seattle was traveling back. I just checked. So I think like Seattle could like be sleepwalking in this game a little bit. Also, like Geno Smith is a bad track record as a big favorite. He's 2-6 against the spread as a favorite of 3.5 or more. So you're asking a lot of Seattle here to cover this big number. Was like, I just don't know if they're going to have like the proper motivation against Arizona, where like the Cardinals, they past couple weeks, they haven't covered the spread, but if you think about it, like they were up 9-6 at halftime against the Rams. They got like steamrolled by the run in the second half. I don't know if they were prepared for it. They just like ran out of gas. The week before, they were up 14-10 against the Bengals, and Joshua Dobbs throws that pick 6, which is uncharacteristic of him. The week before that, they played the 49ers, and they were only down 5 entering the fourth quarter. So like, yeah, they haven't covered the past 3 weeks, but I feel like they've been close. And I just think this is too big of a number for Seattle. I'm just not a big fan of the Seattle team, despite the metrics saying otherwise. The metrics like them, but I think that's only because of that Giants game. Like otherwise, like Seattle, like they were down in the third quarter against Carolina. Like think about that. They got going late in that game, but Carolina suffered so many injuries in that game. So I just think overall, like the Seattle team has like benefited from a lot of injuries from teams, and Arizona might be getting some players back from injury. I think Budda Baker might be back this week. So it's something to watch out for. But I mean, either way, I definitely like Arizona here.
Yeah, I think there's going to be better spots to fade Arizona moving forward, because I'm going to come off of them pretty soon. But I don't think this is the spot. I've been bad. The first 3 weeks of the year, they covered the spread, and it was like all of a sudden it was fun to root for them, and they were a fun team. And then the last 3, they obviously haven't covered. But I think what's going to happen is they cover this spread, and then they have games against the Ravens, Browns, and Falcons. And I think they may go 0-3 against the spread in that span. But people might want to back them coming off of this game, just because if the Ravens beat the Lions, that spread could get out of control, but it might be warranted.
Chris likes the Cardinals for 20 units. So we've gone from requesting 9 units to 20 units. So next up, who's going to go 30 units on a game?
I'm going to be bankrupt by week maybe 9 at this point if we are betting 20 units a game, man.
I know that's kind of crazy, but yeah, if you like the team, then go for it. Maybe you have a Biff's Almanac from Back to the Future. So then you definitely want to do that. Steelers at the Rams next game. This line opened up Rams -3, and it's still -3. Steelers coming off a bye. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so the one thing that sticks out to me in this game is that Mike Tomlin is 11-4 straight up coming off of a bye during his time as a Steelers head coach. And I know people will say, well, he had some really good teams during that span, so naturally he's going to be pretty good at winning after bye weeks. But I think it just speaks to the fact that he's able to make some small tweaks or get his team really prepared coming out of the bye either way. I know this team has been ugly to watch at times because their offense is truly dreadful. And then, you have the other side of things where the defense is good and gets a lot of pressure, but they give up some big passing plays, and they're not as strong against the run as they normally would be. So, they have holes within this team. They have issues, but I think this 3-point spread makes you want to back the Steelers here. And the Rams aren't a bad team, and I think we've seen that in recent weeks. They've competed well, especially within their own division. But if you look at what has been in common in their 3 losses, in their wins. Their wins have come against teams that rank 14th, 21st, and 32nd in pressure rate, respectively. So they're not beating any high-end teams in pressure rate. The Steelers rank top 10. And for those wondering who is the 14th ranked team in pressure rate that the Rams managed to beat, that is the Seahawks. And that number is extraordinarily skewed, as you just mentioned, because they got 11 sacks against the Giants. When the Seahawks played the Rams in week 1, I think they didn't get a single pressure, according to the stats that you've read numerous times on this podcast. So I think if you look at it from that standpoint, when the Rams aren't pressured that much, they are able to win games. But when they're not, when they are pressured, it's a lot harder for them to do it. So I think this is an advantageous spot for the Steelers because of that. So I'm going to be on them for a couple units here in all likelihood at +3. I know we've gotten burned with them on occasion, but I do think there is some sort of cadence with the Steelers where you can kind of figure out, like, these are the spots they'll struggle and these are the spots they won't struggle in.
Carter asking, Tomlin is good as an underdog, but it feels like that it's only true in divisional games. Any truth to that? Well, let's look it up real time. We have Killer Sports here. Mike Tomlin as an underdog. He came in 07, right? Not 06?
Yeah, 07.
Yeah, so he's 49-33 against the spread as an underdog, which is very impressive. Now let's look at divisional. He is 21-9 against the spread in divisional games as an underdog. In non-divisional games, probably do the math, we could look it up. 28-24 against the spread, so still over 500. He's 53.8% against the spread in those games. Still, I mean, you can still bet it. Like, obviously, I guess you want him more in divisional games, but I still think there's some merit to taking Mike Tomlin as an underdog here, especially with the week off. He's a really good coach, and I think coming off a bye, Golden Guy saying Tomlin off a bye as an underdog is unbeaten. No, we could look that up as well. So anyway, like, as I say this, Deontay Johnson might come back. He was designated to return from injury reserve. So, like, having him back would provide some juice to the offense, which really needs it. And I think the Steelers overall should be able to move the ball against the Rams. Like, the Rams don't have a good defense here. Looks like Tomlin off as an underdog is 1-2 against the spread coming off a bye. Not that it's like not a big sample size at all. And actually, one of this is the Super Bowl. So pay no attention to that. So we're really 1-1. So I guess not. So anyway, I think that the thing here with the Rams is, like, the Rams really got going last week. As I said earlier when I was talking about the Cardinals, like, they really steamrolled the Cardinals. They ran the ball 3 times in the first half. And then they just ran the ball nonstop with Kyron Williams in Arizona. I feel like they were kind of caught off guard by that. And plus, Arizona is not good against the run anyway. The Steelers are really good against the run. And I think that with the Rams, I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball because Kyron Williams is out. Ronnie Rivers is out. Cam Akers is gone. Like, they're going to have to rely on Zach Evans to run the ball. And I just don't think they're going to be able to do that. And that means Stafford's going to have to throw more. And as you said, like, the pressure rate is going to be tough for him because the Rams don't block very well. So I feel like Pittsburgh matches up pretty well here with the Rams. So yeah, I kind of like him here at +3, getting Tomlin as an underdog, regardless of divisional game. I still think it's a pretty good side.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, like I said, it's kind of been easier to figure out what spots we should back the Steelers in as the season's gone on because we have so much data on Tomlin. And yeah, I think that I'm looking forward to seeing Zach Evans play because I have been talking all basically season with my friend Matt, who works over at Sporting News with me. We've been like, oh, we got to get the Zach Evans breakout game because we keep being like, why is Ronnie Rivers the backup? Why is Royce Freeman getting the backup reps? But now they're going to have no choice but to use Zach Evans in some sort of role in this game. So we'll see if he ends up being good.
Well, I'm trying to pick up Zach Evans in our league, just because my running backs are decimated. I started Salvin Ahmed in our fantasy league last week because like all my players are hurt, like all of them, and I needed someone to start a running back. Is either him or like Tajay Spears, and actually I ended up winning. I beat a team that was 4-1, so I don't know how that happened. Um, anyway, Chris asking, could McVay be distracted by son being born, which should happen this week? I personally did not know that. I guess, yeah, I guess like any time he's in the hospital and not preparing for the game, sure. Like, yeah, you're going to be distracted. So that could be definitely the case. Chris saying, I don't know why the Sharps on in the Rams here, which is true. Unless they brought into two receivers, one poop cup. I think that, I don't know why the Sharps on the Rams. I really don't get it. Maybe they just don't like the Steelers. My thought is maybe they saw the Steelers beat the Ravens and they're like they did not deserve to win the game, which is true. Like Baltimore should have won, but Baltimore is definitely a better team than the Rams. And like as I said before, Deontay Johnson might be back. The Steelers are coming off a bye. I feel like they're gonna have better preparation here. So yeah, I'm just gonna go against the Sharps.
Yeah, you got to fade the Sharps sometimes, and it's worked if you've done it against Denver this year. So maybe the Steelers, we have a better beat on them than the Sharps. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, we'll get to Denver in a second. Before we do, Chargers at the Chiefs. This line open up Chiefs -6 is down to 5.5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so at 5.5, I wrote that I like the Chiefs. I know the Chargers have played well against them over the years, but I'm not sold on them right now. I mean, they're coming off of a Monday Night Football loss, which I never like. And I know that it was a close game, but they didn't play particularly well. Justin Herbert didn't look fully healthy with that finger. I know it's his non-throwing hand, but we saw him like sail a few throws way over receivers throughout that game. So I think that was a little bit of a kind of wake-up call for me of like, all right, Herbert might not be fully right here. And who knows? He might be healthy by this week too, but it's the short rest makes me a little bit nervous. The other element here is that Andy Reid is coming off the mini bye, so he's had extra time to prepare for this game. So that should benefit the Chiefs ever so slightly. I will say that if this line was at 6, I probably would be on the Chargers here because you'd at least be getting one key number. And I could see the case for backing them because they are a team that could absolutely get a backdoor cover. But where we're not getting the 6 and 7 with this 5.5 line, that leaves me to be on the Chiefs. I just think that with the way they're currently constructed, I know their offense hasn't come together yet because they still are lacking receiver talent outside of Travis Kelce, but their defense is much better than it's been in recent years. And I think that they're going to be able to kind of pester Justin Herbert more than they've been able to in recent years. And we just saw the Cowboys, despite only having, I think, one sack of Justin Herbert, we saw them limit the Chargers to 17 points. And really, 7 of those points were caused because of a bad play by Jalen Tolbert, where he tried to field a punt because he thought it touched Kevontae Turpin after someone was blocked into him. So I'm just not trusting the Chargers offense right now, so I'm going to back the Chiefs. But this isn't one of my favorite plays. I've got 1 unit penciled in right now, but I might go down to 0.
Yeah, it's a tough one, I think. And I say that because I feel like the Chargers could cover any spread really and not win. Like you want to back them when they're big underdogs. Like 5.5 is not as like that big, but it is closer to 6. You can probably buy up the 6 if you really want to. Here are I want to read you the margin of losses that Justin Herbert has had since his second season. So I guess it's a lot. Let me actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up as a graphic so people don't have to be bored by all the numbers that I'm reading. Let me just show you this here. Here are the losses here. So I'll read it for people who are listening on iTunes. 3-3-2-1-3, 7-3-6, 14-28, 3-3-12-6, 15-7, 3-28-3. A lot of threes in there, a lot of low numbers. Justin Herbert keeps games close, whether it's backdoor covers or just being competitive overall. He's had a couple of blowouts here and there, but just for the most part, he's been pretty tight with teams, especially the Chiefs. As Chris said in the chat, Justin Herbert's 5-1 against the spread against the Chiefs. Now, the thing to consider here, though, is that the Justin Herbert has never seen a Chiefs team with an elite defense. The last time he played against the Chiefs and had his like most of his players healthy was week 2 of last year, and he got hurt in that game, and they may have won. But that was back when the Chiefs did not have a good defense and they couldn't cover big spreads, and now they do. The Chiefs have the number 4 ranked defense in the NFL, which is kind of crazy to think. Like, so I think they should be able to limit Justin Herbert. And if the Chargers are ever going to get blown out by the Chiefs, I think it's in this scenario, just when, I think people are like, I think they're almost even underrating the Chiefs, because all I hear is like, oh, the Chiefs can't score a lot. They're not winning these games by a lot of points. And they recently they crushed the Bears. Granted, they played a tight game against the Jets where, they ended up beating the Jets, which a lot of teams can't say in New York. And then they beat the Broncos by 11, but like they're like goofing around, like they're doing all these trick plays, and like didn't seem like they're taking Denver seriously. Like I feel like they're going to take the Chargers seriously. So I would like the 5.5, and I'm like you. If this were 6, I'd give it a second thought, maybe even go with the underdog. But I actually still think I would go with the Chiefs with anything below 7. So I'm going to be in Kansas City here, but I'm not betting this one. I think it's pretty tough on the handicap.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is one of the toughest ones of the week because I think the Chiefs just strike me as the right side because the best unit in this game is going to be their defense, which is the weirdest thing to say. You would think these two teams have been just so offensive heavy, but with the Chiefs have been like slow on offense because they don't have another good receiver outside of Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice is starting to improve though.
Mm-hmm.
But the Chargers are just so volatile. And I don't trust Brandon Staley either. That's a massive part of this. Like Andy Reid was goofing around against the Broncos. That's why we got the push last week. But I think that he'll come more prepared in this one because he's going to look at this and say, like, hey, if we get the Chargers here, this is going to be like almost a death knell for their season. And we'll be able to maybe run away with this division title. So I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter, but I'm right there with you on the Chiefs. And it's not going to be a heavy bet if I bet it at all.
Well, Chris asking if Brandon Staley's beard has helped him make better decisions. I haven't kept track of his beard. Like, did he have that beard when he went for 4th and 1 two times in a row? Or is that just new? Because I did notice it on Monday night. I just don't know if it was there for those bad 4th and 1 calls.
I think it was new. I think he grew it during the bye week because I saw it and I was like, I don't remember this at all.
Okay.
I could be wrong, though.
Well, maybe that was the trick. He's like, oh, Mike Tomlin does well after the bye. Like, what can I do myself? Andy Reid, etc. Like, maybe that's his thing where he just grows a beard and he has better decision making. I don't know. Like, it can't be worse, right? Like, it can't hurt. Let's try something new. So we had a couple things here. Carter Toon says, I think both these teams are overrated. I can see the case for the Chargers being overrated because they're bad defense, but as I said before, the Chiefs are the only team in the NFL that is both top 5 in offense and defense. So I actually think they're underrated. I think because people are saying that there's something wrong with him, like Tom says here, I'd like the Chargers here a bit. Something's off with KC. I don't see what's off with KC. Like, they had one bad game against the Jets. Outside of that, they've covered every single spread since week 1 when they didn't have Kelce and Chris Jones. They may push for some people in that Denver game, but the spread was 10.5 for a while. So in most cases they've only not covered once, so they've beaten expectations in every game except for one. And looking back at it, the Jets beat the Bills at home, they beat the Eagles at home, they did not beat the Chiefs at home. So I don't know what's wrong. Like it's not an uncommon thing for people to say. Like, I've heard this a lot. Like, the Chiefs aren't right, something's wrong with them. I don't see what's wrong with them. I think they're the best team in the NFL. So
it's that their offense, I think what people think is wrong is their offense isn't as pretty as it's been in years past. They're not having the big plays. They're having more situations where the ball either gets punted or turned over. And it's mostly because of teams taking away the deep play and them not having that great depth at receiver. So I really think that's all it is right now. And I think that'll get straightened out because I think you're right, though. Their defense is like really, really strong.
Well, it's crazy. Like, I guess that kind of makes sense, but like EPA offense, Dolphins are 1, Bills are 2, Niners are 3, Chiefs are 4. Like, they're the number 4 offense. Like, I mean, yeah, I guess they could be in the top 3, but I don't know. Like, I've definitely heard that opinion from a lot of people, and I just don't get it. I think they're like I said, I think they're the best team in the NFL. And if people think that there's something wrong with them, I want to take advantage of them. And I said I'm not going to bet this game, but if I see the sharps jump on the Chiefs, and like I keep hearing people say, "Oh, the Chargers are going to cover," like I think I'm going to be on the Chiefs. I may bet this game. Um, anyway, next game we have Packers and Broncos here. Packers open -1. They're still -1, and surprise, surprise, the Sharps are on Denver for the fourth time this year. They're 0-3 against the spread, backing Denver. Jacob, are they finally going to get a Broncos pick right?
I wrote that it is time. So I am with them on this one. I know that they just had that game against the Chiefs where they looked kind of lost on offense a little bit, but I think you could chalk that up to facing a really good Chiefs defense that kind of rattled Russell Wilson, forced him into turnovers, some mistakes. And I just think that if you look at the Packers defense, they're not nearly as strong. I know they played well against the Raiders, but Broncos have a bit more firepower there because Russell Wilson has not been the number one problem with this team this year. He's had his moments, but generally speaking, he's been much better than he was last year. So against weaker defenses, he should be able to move the ball. And look, maybe I'm reading into Jordan Love's performance against the Raiders too much, but I don't exactly have faith that he's going to be able to move the ball on the Broncos, who I know have one of the worst defenses in the league. But I like what they did against the Chiefs a little bit. I know that was a division rivalry game on a short week where Andy Reid wasn't taking things seriously, so maybe take that with a grain of salt. But Jordan Love just wasn't reading the field at all well against the Raiders. He was under pressure from Max Crosby quite a bit, but aside from that, he just kind of stared down Robert Spillane to set up Raiders' scoring opportunity on an interception. And I just worry that the same thing's going to happen against the Broncos because the Broncos have some good personnel on defense. Just hasn't come together yet. So maybe this will finally be the moment. Maybe it's insanity to back the same thing happening again and again with no results. But I've kind of been back and forth on the Broncos this year, backing them, sometimes being wrong, but other times I haven't backed them and I've been right about it. So I just think that this spot benefits them. So I'm going to ride with them. I'm going to ride with Russell Wilson here at +1. Not super into it, though. I have it down for 0 to 2 units. The 2 is basically there if Aaron Jones has any sort of injury issues coming out of the bye and isn't able to play, then I'll like the Broncos enough to bet them probably because his presence really makes a difference for Love because he has someone he can rely on out of the backfield. Dylan looked good against the Raiders, but he doesn't have the same explosiveness and pass catching abilities as Jones. So I'm interested to see what happens with Jones in this matchup. If he can't play, though, I'm going to be on the Broncos. And I think the fact that they signed James Robinson today is kind of indicative that, hey, Aaron Jones might not be fully healthy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't consider that signing. I was kind of confused by the signing more as like, why is James Robinson still getting chances here? Like, I don't know what the Packers think they're going to get with him. Like, even if Aaron Jones is out, like 10 carries, like 13 yards. I just don't see it. Yeah, I'm not with the Sharps here at all. I'm going to be on the Packers. I was on the Packers when they were playing at the Raiders, and I think the Raiders and Broncos are very similar, as I said earlier. So if I like the Packers against the Raiders, I think I definitely like them here against the Broncos with the week off. I think they'll get some things right. They might get some players back. Maybe it's Aaron Jones. Maybe it's Devondre Campbell. I think his absence has been huge. Jair Alexander came back for that Raider game, but with more time to get healthy, I think we're going to see him at 100%. Same thing with Christian Watson. Maybe he'll be healthier. I mean, he looked healthy against the Raiders, but still, like maybe he'll get there. The Packers will have a week to work with no cookie Jordan Love here, and like maybe get him better against a team that's just dreadful defensively. And like, man, this Denver team just sucks. Like they've had so many easy home games. They lost all of them. Like, so why would they win this one? Like they had the Raiders at home, they lost. They had the Redskins at home, they lost. They had the Jets at home, they lost. Like, why would they suddenly beat the Packers at home? I feel like the Packers are better than both the Raiders and the Redskins. I know they lost to the Raiders, but still, like they outgained the Raiders. I think it was just like Jordan Love, like self-destructing. But like Jordan Love had played well earlier in the year. Like he just had a horrible game, and he's a young quarterback. Like he can have a terrible game. I'm not going to overreact to one game. So I think he's going to bounce back, especially with that bye week. I think, I think that the Packers are coached well. So I think they're going to put Love into better situations, especially if Aaron Jones is back. We'll see if Jones plays. Like if Jones and Campbell definitely come back, I'm going to have interest in betting the Packers, just fading the Sharps. if both are out again, then I'm not going to bet this game. But like I said, Denver just sucks. Like all their offensive production comes with Russell Wilson's down 2 touchdowns. Like suddenly he starts running, like where I don't know why he doesn't run earlier. Like he'll be down 14 and he starts scrambling and like he'll start doing stuff and like it's like, oh, why, you wouldn't have been down 14 if you had done this earlier. I just don't get what's going on with this team and this quarterback. I just think the Broncos are broken, and I want nothing to do with them.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I'm just my thing is less of an overreaction to the Raiders game and more of a like I don't know. I just feel like this is going to be a close game, and I feel like the Broncos could have win it. But like I said, I'm not like super high on this one unless Aaron Jones is out, and I forgot about Devondre Campbell. If he's out, then that makes me want to be on the Broncos more too. But if he's back, then things are a little different.
Besides, said Packers going to win this one for Hackett. It's personal.
There we go.
Yeah, right. Chris saying, why do you call him No Cookie Jordan Love, Walt? Tell me you haven't read my book without telling me you haven't read my book. It's in my second book. It's how the 2020 MVP was stolen. You can find it on Amazon. I go into it. It's Aaron. It's how Brett Favre tried to steal the MVP award from Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I'm sure maybe you'll tell me about it if you read it or buy it. G Chuck asking who gets Caleb Williams next year. Well, Chicago's 2 shots, right? They have Carolina's pick and their own pick, and they're drafting 1 too. So I'd be shocked if it's not Chicago. Like Carolina hasn't even covered the spread this year. Like how they turn things around. And Chicago now suddenly Justin Fields is hurt, so like they may not win games. So it's got to be the Bears, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, they're going to have the capital to move up to get him if they don't, because. Look, if the Patriots were to somehow get the number 1 pick, Bill Belichick would probably trade it to the Bears, but like, give me your 2 first-round picks. The Bears probably do it. So, yeah.
Tom saying his favorite character is Rogers Johnson. Yeah. Chris saying I have 2 safeties and a field goal, which is my other book. Don't have that one yet. Yeah, so I had made that one. I'm currently working on Jerks of the Week, the college years, which is like 98% done. It's just hard to finish it during the season, so it's gonna be out after the season. Actually would have been done this summer, but had some personal things like daughter being born, so that kind of took things away, took some time away. But yeah, it's like almost done, so I'm gonna have a third book out like I'll say February of 2024, hopefully. Maybe March. Last thing Kel says, Walt, I love and respect you, but man, you're just not seeing the board clearly. If you take the Dolphins to beat the Eagles, I'd take a few weeks off, man. Well, I mean, I would like to hear like why you think I'm not seeing the board clearly, because I'm open to all suggestions after 2 weeks. I mean, I thought I was doing well after 4 weeks. It's just these past 2 weeks have been pretty bad. But yeah, let me know why you think. Well, first of all, why do you think the Dolphins beating the Eagles would be a bad call? And second, what have I not seen clearly? That definitely would love all the feedback. Chris saying, will you ever do a book signing if there's if there's a demand for it? Sure. I don't know if there's a demand for it, but I'm more than happy to sign anyone's book if they want it. Like to get a copy signed for Woody Page. As Woody Page once called me a mushroom in dank darkness, or is it dark dankness? I think it was dank darkness.
I think it was dank darkness, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, he said that because he found out I had like 40 something mock drafts during the year, even though it's my job. So I don't know why he was so angry about that, but I actually emailed him back and I said, hey, Woody, love seeing you on Around the Horn. I saw you call me Mushroom Dank Darkness, but I appreciate give me a shout out, and he didn't respond. So it was disappointing. Chris says, if your new book is anything as good as Zach Morris's Hair and Saved by the Bell, the college years is a bestseller. So I don't know. There's a lot that went on in college. To say that that was like the genesis of my Jerks of the Week. I used to write away messages on AIM when that was the thing, and like people I didn't even know would read them. They would just like add me as a friend just to read those, and like I'd get responses from like people I didn't know. It was like so wild. It's just like I would just like talk about people around campus or my dorms or my professors. Like it's just so I turned that into a book. So or I will turn that into a book. So it was pretty fun to read through it, and like all these like memories from like 20 years ago or so. So it's kind of crazy. So Tom's saying I better know some characters in the new book. Yeah, Tom and I lived right next to each other in our I think it was Tom, you're a freshman, right? I think it was my 5th year. And yeah, we had some interesting characters on our floor. Kel says, it just feels like you aren't reading spots as well as you typically would. Even leading the Browns this weekend, I think I'm going to go terribly. As for the Dolphins game, even leaning Browns this weekend, Browns aren't a good spot. Like, I know that they're coming off a big win. I just think if Watson's playing, I definitely would be on the Colts. I'm just scared of backing a bad quarterback against the top defense. So it's going to look like when they play Buffalo.
Yeah, that's for the Dolphins game, I think. That's our next one, right?
Yes. Yeah, let's get to it. So Dolphins at the Eagles. This line opened up. Eagles -2.5. It's down to 1.5. So the line is dropping. So that is something in favor of Miami here. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I have the Eagles penciled in for what Kel said. I don't think it's going to be the similar type of score line to when they played the Bills, because I think the Bills are better rounded than the Eagles right now. And I know you're probably going to make the case that the Eagles are overrated, and I don't disagree with that. My point here is that as good as the Dolphins' offense is, I still think their defense has holes, and they haven't been tested all that much this year. They've definitely been impressive, and they've blown out inferior competition, which is a good sign. But these are the quarterbacks that they have played outside of all right, so they have one loss. It was against Josh Allen's Bills by 28 points. In the other 5 games, all wins. These are the quarterbacks they've played: Justin Herbert, Mac Jones, Russell Wilson, Daniel Jones, and Bryce Young. So I know Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback, and he played great in that game, and the Dolphins managed to win and cover in that one. But that one was close. That one was the closest to the bunch. The other ones the Dolphins have won pretty convincingly. But I think that part of the reason for that is because their defense, which is the weakness of this team, hasn't really been tested by any of these quarterbacks. I think Jalen Hurts, as bad as he looked against the Jets, we've seen the Jets embarrass some quarterbacks this year. And I think that Jalen Hurts will be able to move the ball with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, who's been getting more involved against this type of defense. And I think DeAndre Swift might have a nice game too. So all that's to say, I think the Eagles can move the ball and keep pace with the Dolphins offense. I know Brian Johnson hasn't been particularly good calling plays, and I know if Lane Johnson is out of this game, the Eagles offense is going to be in worse shape. But I still think that they have enough talent needed to move the ball on this Dolphins defense, potentially get the win here. The other side of the ball, the Eagles defense is overrated. They're not as good in coverage as they've been in years past because they're banged up at cornerback. So I get that as a reason why you might want to back the Dolphins here, because Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle should be able to kind of get the ball downfield against that unit. But still, I think where this line is under 3, I want to back the Eagles in this spot. I think they know that they're going to have to bring their A game against the Dolphins. And I just don't think Miami has been tested that often this year. I think comparatively, the Eagles tested maybe a little more. I know you can make the case that they haven't exactly had a hard schedule thus far. But in recent weeks, they've played the Jets, who have a good defense, the Rams, who are kind of a little underrated right now. And, before that, they didn't really have any big-time opponents that have been great this year. But I think that those 2 games kind of have maybe made some people sour on the Eagles, where I think the Dolphins have had fewer spots to sour in. So I like the Eagles here. I think they're going to beat the Dolphins. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be high scoring. And I've got the Eagles penciled in for 1 to 2 units. Now, if you're on the Dolphins here, I'm curious to hear why you think that, because I have been bad at reading the Dolphins at times this year.
Yeah, I mean, I took the Dolphins. I'm not. It's not a big bet for me or anything. But I like the one major thing that I'm considering here is Lane Johnson's injury. He got hurt last game against the Jets, and after that, they've fallen apart. Like Jalen Hurts, I feel like with better protection wouldn't have thrown that interception that he did at the end. And like the Eagle, just look at the track record, like with the Eagles without Lane Johnson, they've just been terrible. Even dating back to Carson Wentz's rookie year, I think they were 6-0 with Lane Johnson and like 2-6 without him or something like that, or 2-8 or whatever the number is. Like they were undefeated with Lane Johnson and like terrible without him. And like he got hurt in that game, and then they just weren't the same offensively otherwise. And I think that like it's like another reason to be down on the Eagles. Like they're 22nd in defensive EPA. Like this team can't cover at all. Which like makes me wonder how they're going to cover the Dolphins with Mike McDaniel just being able to scheme receivers open all the time. I just think that like McDaniel has a big coaching advantage against the two new coordinators. And yeah, like I just look at the Eagles results. Like, yeah, the only reason why they're not undefeated is because of what happened in the Jets game. But like they were able to benefit a lot from the first two games of the season. The Patriots had those two turnovers that went for touchdowns, and they outgained the Eagles otherwise in that game. In week 2 against the Vikings imploded. It was just terrible. And then week 4 against the Redskins, they almost lost that game. And we know how bad the Redskins are. I just think that the Eagles are a good fade as an overrated team. I know the Dolphins defense isn't all that great either. It's probably like below average. It's probably where the Eagles defense is. Like, honestly, they're probably about the same. But I think that the difference is Miami's offense is going to be so much better than the Eagles offense if Lane Johnson's out. So if like Lane Johnson's missing, I'm definitely going to be in the Dolphins. If Lane Johnson comes back and we think that he's going to be 100%, then it's probably going to be like a stay away from me. But like, with the comparison of Dolphins Bills, like the Bills back when they had everyone healthy, like they were so much better than the Eagles. Like the Bills back then were, I think they and the Chiefs were the only teams that had top 5 offenses and defenses. Whereas the Eagles right now, and I look at their offensive rating, the Eagles are 5th in offense, which is fine. Obviously, you're going to be worse without Lane Johnson. The 22nd in defense. Like their defense is bad. I know they had the pass rush, but like I don't know. Like they just can't seem to do anything in the secondary. Their secondary is horrible. So I just don't see them covering Tyreek Hill, Joe, and Waddle. I know it's not like a great spot or anything, but I made this line Dolphins minus 2.5. So I think the number's off. We're not getting any key numbers or anything, but yeah, I think Miami's the right side given Lane Johnson's possible absence.
Yeah, if Lane Johnson's absent, I'm probably not going to want to really bet this game. I'm going to stick with the Eagles, though. And this has just kind of been my trend throughout the year. There have been some spots where I've been willing to back the Dolphins, and just some where I'm like, I think that they're going to have more trouble against this team than it looks like. And I don't think it's going to come on the offensive side. I think they're going to score a lot, but I think the Eagles offense, this might end up being more of a get right game for them than people realize. And maybe Lane Johnson's absence makes a massive impact and that doesn't come to pass. But I think one of two things happens. Either guts it through the game and is able to help out, and that does enough for the Eagles to win, or we finally see the Eagles kind of unleash Jalen Hurts a little bit more, and Brian Johnson calls a better game. Maybe I'm hoping for maybe it's a fool's errand to hope that this will happen, but I still think the personnel is there for the Eagles offense to bring it all together, and I think this is a good matchup.
Yeah, I think Carter says Dolphins defense is the worst unit. I mean, Miami's defense currently ranks ahead of the Eagles defense, like statistically, like metrics wise. But they're still pretty bad. Like I don't know if you could say the Eagles defense is better than Miami's defense. I think like they're pretty close. Kel's saying Slay is coming back. Like Slay has been terrible this year. Like he just looks cooked. Like the Eagles corners are old and slow. Like I don't think they don't stand a chance against the Dolphin receivers. And Kel says, just be careful backing public dogs. Are the Dolphins public dog? They are. No, the Eagles are getting the money. The Eagles are getting 58% of bets and 90% of money. So the sharps are on the Eagles. So like, it feels like the public is even on this game, and the sharps are on the Eagles. So I don't like no one's really backing the Dolphins right now. Like the public's definitely not. I agree though. Like siding with public dogs is usually a bad idea. But this is not a public dog instance either. So
yeah, I think this is getting appropriate action. I think you can make the case for the line being like 1.5 points on either side. So it's just kind of a pick your poison type thing. I'm really interested to see how this game plays out. I think it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah. Golden Glide saying, I remember early millennium, you might have been out of high school. Yeah, I graduated in 2000. I used to have some real field bets and big plays. It was amazing. You couldn't miss, made perfect sense, etc. It was a magic time because it just trapped us, like winning early and never forgetting. Well, I mean, like I've had some really good years recently. Like 2020, I would finish 7th in Super Contest. Like 2020, 2021, and 2022, I think like we had some really good years too. Just this year has this only these past 2 weeks have been that bad, really. Like I think in the Super Contest, I started 12-7-1 this year after 4 weeks, and then just like fell apart like these past 2 weeks. But like it's only 2 weeks. It's like a 10-game sample size. I don't think it's like you can really make much of it. And like we did get some bad luck, like the Patriots game. Like imagine if that safety didn't happen. I think we'd be feeling a lot better about ourselves right now, So
Yeah, we'd be kind of like, we're in a little rut, but it's not
right.
that bad. But
Right.
that would have swung a lot of things, that safety.
Yeah, seriously. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like I'm misreading some things, but I don't know if it's that bad. I just like I still want to do some like soul searching, like figure out like it is an important question. Are we handicapping games poorly or are we getting unlucky? Like, and yeah, you kind of have to be honest with yourself. Like just kind of look at all the games, seeing like if figure out if you did something wrong or if like just bad luck happened, like which does tend to happen like a lot. So
Yeah, and I've
there's
had my share of whiffs this year too, where I've just been like, why did I do that? So,
right.
it's all about just getting better and not trying not to make the same mistake 3 times in a row, like backing the Patriots, even when it looked like the right thing.
Yeah. Golden Guy saying you've been doing it too long to have been wrong. That's for sure. Well, I don't know. I mean, like you could always like misread teams. Like that. I think it's impossible to read all 32 teams correctly. If you misread a team and you're wrong on the projected line, like you can get in trouble. Like the Patriots, for example. Like before this like 3-game disaster that they had, I had them ranked as like a medium to below average team, and they just gotten killed these past 3 games. And like now, I would only rank the Panthers below them. So you kind of have to make adjustments, and that's an example. Like misreading the Patriots, like absolutely destroyed me. Like granted, they should have covered against the Raiders, but those other 2 games, they had no business being like that low of a spread. It should have been a lot higher. So it like you have to read the teams correctly, and like I said, it's hard to read all 32 teams right, but you have to make sure that you read most of them right. Otherwise, you can be in a lot of trouble too. So, like that's something that you have to get correct. And I always say that like, the number one angle, the best angle you could possibly have betting sports, especially the NFL, without having insider knowledge, like we had the Buccaneers in 2010, 2011, thanks to Charlie. Uh, it's the absolute knowledge that that a team is either better, a lot better, or a lot worse than everyone thinks they are. Kind of like last year, like we knew Minnesota, Seattle, Giants, and maybe not Buccaneers. I don't know if we recognize them, but those 4 teams were definitely a lot worse than people thought. And like there was a lot of money to be made on them. I just like I want to find those teams, and like that's why I'm fading the Eagles here. I think the Eagles are worse than people think they are. I get the spot, I get the comparison to the Buffalo game. I just think the Eagles of 5-1 they're not a 5-1 team. Just metrics wise, their defense sucks. Like I know Slay's coming back, he sucks. Like he's been terrible this year. Like I just don't see the Eagles getting right. I think they're overrated. I think their 2 coordinators being gone means a lot, and I think people dismiss that. And I think like this is the one team I'm pretty confident in that's overrated. Like yeah, they covered against the Rams, but like 2 of the past 3 games kind of nailed them. Like last week against the Jets, I had the Jets. A couple weeks ago, before that, I had the Redskins. Redskins almost won. I think this is one of those teams that's going to be a good fade for the rest of the year. I think unless something really changes, like which I can't envision, but I think the Eagles are good fade.
And my hope is that they cover and win here, and then I can start fading them because I don't disagree with you, but I am notoriously lower on the Dolphins than most, though, because I just don't trust that defense.
Yeah. Cal says, I personally don't bet teams, more situations than numbers seems to work. Hit 61% against the spread last bunch of seasons. Just which situations you bet? I think that's kind of interesting to bring up. So hopefully you respond before we get through this game. Next one is it's a Monday night game. Is the 49ers at the Vikings. This line opened up 7. It is still 7. I don't know if we have any news on Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, or Trent Williams. I know Trent Williams came back, but he was in a walking boot afterwards, so there's no guarantee that he plays in this game. So who do you like here?
Yeah, this game gets my equivalent of a shoulder shrug, and I'm very annoyed with the lack of injury updates we're getting out of San Francisco because all I saw today was like Adam Schefter reported like, oh, it doesn't seem like McCaffrey, Samuel, and Williams' injuries are that bad, and they all might be able to play this week. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help. Can you give me a timetable? Anything, or just be like, it seems more likely than not that one of these guys. And I get that that's the team's holding information, but anyway, those 3 injuries are massive for the 49ers offense because we saw what they looked like, granted, against a great Cleveland defense without them, but I think it's just the point is if Brock Purdy is without his top running back, his one of his top 2 pass catchers, and his top blocker on an offensive line that has been good this year. But, I think Trent Williams is arguably the best left tackle in the league. If he goes out, what does that mean for the rest of them? I think that becomes an interesting question of how is Brock Purdy going to carry this unit against a Vikings defense that, they haven't been good this year. They haven't been great, but they made some plays last week, granted against Chicago and Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent. So I definitely think that there is a case you can make for the Vikings at +7 if those guys are out, but we just don't know yet. So I'm going to give the cop-out answer of this is a complete injury report game. My thought is if the 49ers have McCaffrey, Samuel, and Trent Williams, I will probably be backing them at -7. If they're without probably any combination of the two, I might back the Vikings with the no bet. If they're without all three, I think this line is too high. So I have 49ers penciled in right now because they're making it seem like those guys are going to play. But if they're out, I'm probably going to flop to the Vikings. But I really don't think we can know much about this game given the lack of reporting around those injuries.
So Chris saying this line is going to 6.5 in some places. I'm seeing a DraftKings, Bet Online, Heritage. They all have 6.5. And Chris is saying, Bet Rivers, Unibet. I don't have those books, but it's still 7 in a lot of books too. If you want to bet it real quick, it's 7 at Circa, Superbook, South Point, Caesars, Bookmaker. And that's what I'm seeing. So yeah, definitely. So you get to choose whether you want the 7 or 6.5. We talk about the injuries here. We don't know their statuses, as you said. But I think the biggest injury here is Justin Jefferson still. Like the Vikings without Jefferson looked terrible last week. They scored 19 points against the Bears and they had a defensive touchdown. Like it was the Bears defense. It wasn't like they're playing like an average or, even a slightly below average defense. They're playing one of the worst defenses in the NFL and they couldn't score at all with Jefferson being out. Like it was like KJ Osborne, throwing to KJ Osborne, like Jordan Addison had a touchdown. Like KJ Osborne is just not good. And then they have TJ Hawkins still, but the 49ers are elite against tight ends. So I wouldn't really count on him doing anything here. And with Jefferson being out, like it seems like the teams could just like collapse the pocket. And like Kirk Cousins just really struggles against pressure, as we know. He also struggles in these primetime games. So that's another issue here. I think with the, if everyone is out for the 49ers, it's going to be tough to back them at this number, but I have to assume they're going to get some of those guys back. I feel like Deebo Samuel is going to play, but he's not going to be 100%. I think Trent Williams will probably play. And I think Christian McCaffrey might sit out a game. And the 49ers know that they have a great record. And I feel like they've won before with Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason. Like they can win a game without McCaffrey. Like I don't think that's a huge deal here. So if they get at least one of those guys and they protect, and like they won't have to make in-game adjustments without them. Like they'll have time to prepare without them too. So I trust Kyle Shanahan here. So I'm going to back the Niners in the spot. If the Vikings had Jefferson, it'd be a different story. But with this offense looks so bad without Jefferson. Like 12 points without against Chicago without Jefferson. Like how are they going to score against San Francisco? Like I just don't see it.
Yeah, that's a good point because San Francisco's defense is healthy and they're coming off a loss, so they're going to be extra motivated for this one. So, yeah, you might be right. This might be a trap scenario. And normally you'd say the Vikings might be able to get a backdoor cover if the 49ers took their foot off the gas. But without Jefferson, that possibility kind of drops off. So I think probably the 49ers are the right side. Again, barring some, multitude of injuries on offense if all those guys miss the game. But I think they should sit McCaffrey. I personally think there's no reason for them to play him until he's 100%. Unless he's not going to be 100% this season, at which point you say you'll take 90%. But I think he should miss at least this week. Maybe the next week if he's still sore. You just don't want him coming back with a sore oblique and aggravating it. So I just hope they make the right decision in regards to him and Deebo and Trent as well. But I think it's most magnified with McCaffrey because of how important he is to that offense.
Chris saying Jacob goes away for a week, comes back with more disagreements than ever. What is the real story here? Yeah, what is this medical procedure you had that made us be so different with our picks?
A colonoscopy. That's actually what it was, but that's the fun stuff, guys. Never want to have to do that, but it's always good. Yeah, no, we have more disagreements, but I think that's just more of an indication of that's where the lines are right now. There's some spots where we're like, "Ooh, man, these are kind of going head to head. These are close." So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens this week. But I feel like we have enough strong agreements this week that it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And we've been pretty lockstep this year, but there have been times in the past where it'd be like, "Oh, I have 5 or 6 different games than you." It looks like one of those weeks.
Yeah, we're gonna need 5 for Super Contest Century in a third. It's actually 12 game slate because it can't submit Thursday games. So, yeah. So Kel saying it's a zigzag sport. Teams look great. I try to fade. Yeah, because you find yourself betting inflated lines. Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, I still like to do that myself, and I think that like making my own lines has helped me in that regard. Dice says, "Can you bring on Viking expert Quack in?" So I'm sure Quacky Takes will be on the show sooner or later, and maybe during Thursday Thoughts. He said he might be able to do it. So if his schedule is available, I'd love to have him on for Thursday Thoughts. We saw that again. Vikings should be pick of the month. I would love to hear why. I just don't see it against the Niners. I don't know. So and maybe if the Niners are coming off the win, maybe. Kel says, "Are you on Facebook, Walt? I also live in Vegas. Would love to chat with you." Yeah, you can Google, just Google my name, Walter Cherpinski, and then Facebook. You'll see it. I'm definitely on there. So yeah, definitely would love to chat as well. Yeah, and if I'm in Vegas, we can, meet up or something. Golden Glide says, "Sucker +7 seems like a sucker bet. Don't really want it to be close. Is it a sucker bet? Let's look at the public action. There's a ton of money on the Niners, so I don't know about it being a sucker bet, but I mean, it could be. The Sharps there's some sharp money on San Francisco. Chris saying, Adam Schefter says all the 49ers guys have a real shot to play, but I guess we'll see. Chris saying Cousins' primetime record will come up. This feels like a glorious public track game. People chasing the Niners off a loss on Monday Night Football. It could be true. I just, like I said, if Justin Jefferson are playing, I'd have more interest. And we have a question here. Just got offered Calvin Ridley for Marquise Brown straight up. What would you do? I'd rather have Calvin Ridley.
I think Ridley has more upside, so I'd probably take that trade as well because eventually he's going to get in step with Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. So a lot of comments here. The Niners still have Ayuk and Kittle. Yeah, I think they'll be fine. Cousins 31 for 44, 364, and 4 touchdowns in prime time this year. Yes, but a lot of that was in garbage time against the Eagles. So I'd like to see those stats without the garbage time. So I think that's definitely something to consider. Okay, let's see. Flores is going to make Purdy look like Johnny Manziel. I would say this, like the Vikings defense has improved for sure. So
I knew we'd get at least one colonoscopy joke.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, lots of colonoscopy jokes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, MNF record, not prime time. Okay. So yeah, let's get to our survivor pick, right? So last week you were not on. Do you want to ignore the pick that you made in Survivor?
No, I was on the Eagles, everyone, and I was between them and the Rams, and I should have gone with the Rams. I know hindsight is 50-50 in the words of was that Cam Newton or was that Emmitt Smith?
Cam Newton, yeah.
Cam Newton.
Could have been Emmitt Smith too.
Yeah, no, that's why I always get confused. Yeah, hindsight 2020, obviously, but I just thought that the Eagles would be able to pull out that win against the Jets, and they really should have, but I won't complain. So, yeah, I have them this week or last week. So this week, who do I have left? I don't even know anymore.
Well, let's look. You took Baltimore, Buffalo, San Francisco, Kansas City, Miami, Eagles. I can give you my pick while you decide. I have gone with Redskins, Bills, Chiefs, 49ers, Lions. I had the Dolphins last week. That was that tricky situation week 5 where you could have took the Lions or Dolphins, and like the Dolphins looked better because St. Brown was out, but like if you looked ahead, like just planning it out, Miami just seemed better in week 6. So this week is tough to make a pick this week. If you don't have Buffalo is the obvious choice, but if you don't have them, it's Seattle against Arizona. And I mentioned Arizona has upset Seattle 6 times in Seattle since 2013. So it is. I hate that. Like I'm scared of this game. Like I think this could be the loss here, but I really don't see anything better. I just looking at all the games. I wouldn't take anyone else over Seattle. Like, I'll just name all the favorites. Saints, no interest there. Buccaneers, I actually like the Falcons, no. Raiders, no, I like the Bears, so no. Do you take the Browns against the Colts if Deshaun Watson plays? Maybe. That's a possibility. You have You could take the Ravens over the Lions if you think it's a really best spot for the Lions, but I'd still rather have Seattle. Bills took them already. Redskins took them already. The Rams over Steelers. I like the Steelers. Chiefs over Chargers. I already took the Chiefs already. The Packers Broncos basically a pick 'em. You have the Eagle. Can you take the Eagles over the Dolphins? If you think it's a great spot, maybe. And then 49ers over the Vikings. I took the 49ers already. So there you go. Like I think Seattle's the best side here. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think I have to go Seattle too. I don't have anything better. And I was the one who fell into that. I got scared off the Detroit game in week 5 because of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I paid the price losing with the Eagles. But I do not have anything better than Seattle either because I've used up the Bills, the 49ers, and all them. So I think you have to roll with Seattle. I hope it's a close game. I hope that the Cardinals don't win outright. But at this point, I'm out in Survivor anyway. So I was in a DraftKings pool that I was hoping I was going to win. So bummer time to whenever you lose Survivor, it's a terrible feeling because that's like early in the season. I'm like, I always have this thing so long as I'm alive in it. And then once it's gone, it's gone. But I think the Seahawks are the right side. A lot of people are going to be on it though. So this could end up being a brutal week for Survivor pools.
Yeah, Cal says still alive in Survivor, taking the Saints. I don't hate that because as Cal says, the whole world's taking Seattle. I've got a gross feeling. Go Saints, go. Yeah, I mean, if you definitely want to fade the public, it's definitely the right way to go. I just don't like the Saints. Like if it's CJ Beathard, I think you have a good shot. But like if Trevor Lawrence plays, I feel like I think the Jaguars are going to win. But it's a tight game. It could go really either way. Chris says Panthers are selfishly on a bye. Like how dare they? So like. Yeah, I think like the Panthers being a bye makes it so much tougher. Last piece of business. We have the teaser: Falcons +8, Giants +8. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Falcons no brainer at +8, and I like the Giants. I think they can beat Washington outright. So you're getting the +8 in both these games. That looks like a really good value. So this is probably one that I'll bet right there with you. I have no qualms about either side here.
All right, sounds good. Any other thoughts here? And if not, do you have anything to plug?
No other thoughts. All I have to plug, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I will tweet out my picks unless I go 0 for 4 on the Sunday slate. I will do them for every standalone game. If I go 0 for 4 on the Sunday slate, I will shut up for the most part for the rest of the week so that you don't have to hear me make wrong picks the whole time. But yeah, no, if you have any football questions, send them my way now. I will check them out and I will try to respond to questions if I see them. And check out sportingnews.com for all your NFL needs. I've got some cool stories coming up over there. I'm drafted a hypothetical 15-man flag football squad since that's going to be in the Olympics in 2028. So that's not live yet, but that'll be out Sunday. So if you're looking for something to read before the Eagles versus Dolphins nightcap after all the early games are done, you can have some fun reading up on flag football and who I think would be the best fit for that game. And, plenty of other stuff coming down the pipeline about Dolphins Eagles as well. We'll keep you posted on that.
Wait, what? I didn't know this. They're having flag football in the Olympics, but not real football? Like, why?
My guess is that not enough countries outside the United States play full-out American football with tackling. And they probably
play flag football. Like,
they do, which is it's bizarre. It's actually popular flag football. It's growing in popularity in like England and Germany and I think Mexico. So, yeah, I guess it's somehow easier to stage, and I think they could probably get the NFL more on board for letting the athletes in since it's not tackle.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I don't know if I'll watch, but that's pretty cool. At least they're adding something. Chris the Cop says, guys, just me or his quarterback play been horrible overall? Yeah, it definitely feels down this year. It seems like the defenses are ahead of the offenses for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's like lack of practice time or something, but that's been the case since the lockout in 2010. So I don't know. Mike says the Panthers have been on bye all year. Yeah, they haven't even covered the spread yet this year. So they forget winning outright. They haven't covered. So not having them on the slate is really painful for Survivor for sure. Anyway, Commissioner Touchback would never let the NFL players do tackle football in the Olympics. That's definitely true. There would never be NFL players in the Olympics. That's absolutely 100% true. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow with Kenny, I think. If not, I'll probably do Thursday thought. No, I'll still do Thursday thoughts on Thursday. So if Kenny's available, which I haven't heard from him otherwise, we will be back to do our DFS show tomorrow, then Thursday thoughts on Thursday, and then Saturday notes on Saturday. So yeah, check back then. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Definitely would help us out a lot for sure with all that. Jacob, it was great to have you back on. Even though we had a lot of disagreements, I think it's fun when we have a lot of disagreements. I think it's great to have like different opinions and whatnot. And thank you for everyone for commenting and listening. Really appreciate it. But yeah, I will be back tomorrow. And Jacob, I'll talk to you later.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you soon.